Councilor for District 4, and I am the Chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Ways and Means. Today is October 17, 2024. This hearing is being held virtually at the request of the lead sponsor, Councilor Flynn. This hearing is being recorded. It is also being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-TV and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and Files Channel 964. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.wm@boston.gov and will be made part of the record and available to all councilors. Public testimony will be taken at the end of this hearing. Individuals will be called in the order in which they signed up and will have 2 minutes to testify. If you are interested in testifying, please email our Central Staff Liaison, Karishma Chauhan at Karishma, KARISHMA.CHOUHAN @boston.gov, where the link of your name will be added to the list. Today's hearing is on docket number 1445. Order for a hearing to discuss providing $15 million toward residential taxpayers in need of relief, and docket number 1512. Order for a hearing to explore utilizing surcharges to provide residential tax relief. These matters were sponsored by Councilors Ed Flynn, Councilor Julie Mejia, and Councilor Amber Murphy, and referred to the committee on September 25th, 2024, and October 9th, 2024. Today we are here in part because of the home rule petition filed by the mayor. The home rule petition seeks to change the tax burden between residential and commercial. As commercial property growth has stalled, the tax burden is set to fall more on homeowners. We are well below our levy ceiling, and we set our tax levy to our levy limit, which is 2.5% more than the previous year's levy limit every year, as we have done for 40 years. The only issue is who that levy is spread across. The property tax classification is trying to keep the responsibility the same as they usually are between commercial and residential property. Today's dockets offer alternatives to the plan. I will let the sponsors talk more about them. But I'd like to be clear again that we have not heard from the administration of any revenue problem for FY25 in Boston. I also like to keep this hearing focused on proper solutions. There have been calls to cut the budget. That actually will only add to the end of the year's surplus, as we have always increased the levy by 2.5%. It's what has gotten this city through 40 years of economic turmoil on the outside world in good shape financially with regard to its budget. During one of our spring hearings on property tax classification, we received feedback suggesting a commercial rate of 185%, a middle ground between the 175% cap and the 200% originally passed by the mayor and this body. I know the mayor has compromised down to 190% with the House, and it's my understanding that there might be a 185% offer on the table in the Senate. As someone who voted against the property tax shift in June because I thought 200% was too high, and as someone who thought 190% was a better number, I urge the sides to reach that compromise on that 185% that was first suggested in the spring hearing earlier this year. Again, I'm happy to learn more about the ins and outs of the plans from Councilor Flynn, and I'm especially eager to learn more about the redirecting state surcharges, as this city has seen a drastic drop in net state aid over the past 20 years. I'll now turn it over to my council colleagues, starting with the original co-sponsors. For opening remarks, Councilor Flynn, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your leadership. We are here today to discuss alternative proposals for tax relief, including state surcharges through the MCCA or the $15 million annual fund the administration has floated to small businesses with their tax shift. I continue to oppose the City of Boston's plan. The administration continues to present their property tax shift proposal as the only way to prevent a significant increase to the residential property taxes. However, I believe that residents have been offered a false choice since April, as the city has disregarded a number of other alternative options recommended by fiscal watchdogs, relevant experts, the business community. Instead, we've continued to engage in an exercise of pitting whether the burden should be on residents or businesses. We've avoided working together on difficult issues with partners and stakeholders. It may be good politics, but it's not what's best for the long-term economic vitality of Boston. With the continued uncertainty in our economy due to the effects of post-pandemic inflation, higher interest rates, the city should first show our commitment to fiscal responsibility by examining areas to tighten our own belt after an 8% budget increase, implement a hiring freeze, and explore all options provided by relevant experts before we can even think of raising property taxes on residents and businesses. While it is critical that we look to maintain $1 billion in emergency reserves to display our fiscal responsibility to rating agencies, whenever our rainy day surplus exceeds that figure, the remainder in interest should be returned to the city budget to help us meet our obligations, stabilize both commercial and residential property taxes. As of FY23, our reserves in the city budget fund balance was approximately $1.186 billion. In their May report, Boston Municipal Research Bureau noted that the city looks to maintain a fund balance of approximately 15% of generally accepted accounting principles, operating expenditures. This figure represents 29% and well above that. Despite several relevant experts calling attention to the heart of the issue being our tax structure, that Boston is more reliant on property taxes than any other city in the country, we have spent 6 months avoiding that long-term issue while focused on the administration's proposal. We have not seen or any analysis or debated whether a small local sales tax or food and beverage tax, which the burden also paid by visitors, tourists, renters, would be less punitive than a significant property tax increase. For years, I continue to discuss the lasting impact of work from home policies, lack of foot traffic on small businesses. I advocated to shift back towards a more city business in hearings being conducted in person. Over a year ago, I held a hearing at the council where panelist after panelist from the administration testified that despite concerning reports on downtown office vacancies and foot traffic, there was no cause for alarm when it came to this new normal. Today, we may also hear from the authors of a joint study which indicated that downtown Boston office vacancy building could decrease in values 30% and lead to the city of Boston collecting $1.5 billion in less revenue over the next 5 years, or annual tax revenues $500 million below our current levels. Again, our heavy dependence on property tax may have allowed us to weather previous storms, but work from home policies, falling commercial property values have unfortunately made it unsustainable. After speaking with businesses throughout Boston and concerned residents, I did not believe the administration's plan was the right solution. In March, I called for the establishment of a Blue Ribbon Commission on this issue, which was unanimously passed as a resolution on the City Council. I have called for a review of the pilot program with large nonprofits in the city, which have absorbed over 50% of our city and continue to expand. This was simply an unsustainable formula, even prior to our economic concerns. We have fallen short of the leadership required to meet this moment. Initially, instead of confronting this challenge issue with the seriousness it required, the administration downplayed the report and attacked its credibility. But the budget process in May, fiscal watchdogs and business leaders noted that when Mayor Menino implemented their tax shift, which this current legislation is based on, they exercised restraint with a modest budget increase of 0.55%, while being forced to eliminate hundreds of positions along with the hiring freeze. Some employees took a pay cut. Despite repeated concerns from fiscal watchdog groups in the business community, the city administration publicly indicates that residents should place the blame on the Massachusetts State Senate if their proposal does not pass this year. Negotiations have continued. In recent weeks, I have called for this hearing to discuss using these funds to provide property tax relief to the very people intended to be protected by this potential tax shift, the residents. I continue to say that while it may not be popular, our city can no longer afford all sectors of our economy to work from home indefinitely and continue to contribute towards falling commercial property values, whether that includes compromises of a 4-day work week, more in-person work. The City of Boston, our private sector, nonprofit partners need to work together and bring back foot traffic to downtown Boston so it continues to be a valuable, desirable place to do business. In times of great crisis, strong leadership can never be about pride and authorship. We can't let ideology cloud our judgment when it comes to this issue and what's best for Boston. Leadership requires us to have difficult conversations with our constituents. It may not be what they want to hear, but what they need to hear. The authors of the relevant studies and fiscal watchdogs noted that the issue lies with our tax structure. It's easy politically to pit residents against the business community. It's a lot harder to do the work to explain what the impact will be on the business climate in the city. I do not pretend to have all the answers. I do not pretend to have all the ideas. But I'm a good listener. What I do know, however, is that many people that I respect from the business community and others and residents have all come to the conclusion that we should work on a compromise. That's not a dirty word. Work on a compromise from a number of solutions so that we don't harm an already struggling industry and perhaps lead us to becoming a less desirable place to live or do business. It's not too late to listen. It's not too late to compromise. Boston works best when we work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Just acknowledge all my council colleagues that are here today. Councilor Fitzgerald, Councilor Braden, Councilor Mejia, Councilor Murphy, Councilor Santana, and Councilor Weber. We will start again with open remarks from all the original co-sponsors. Councilor Mejia, you now have the floor.
I'm not the lead co-sponsor. I think Councilor Murphy is, and there are 2 dockets, so I just want to make sure that I follow the protocols and procedures. So Councilor Murphy is the second sponsor, so you can go to her and then me. Or
yeah, no, I was going in order of arrival, original co-sponsors.
Okay.
So Councilor Mejia.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Okay, Chair, I see you. All right. So good morning, everyone. Happy to be here. One of the things that I have learned about politics is that, you know, we have to always try to find a way where everybody feels like they've lost, because in this situation here, very similar to COVID, COVID did not pick any winners, right? And I think that this conversation, oftentimes when we're looking at what we need to do, it seems like we're always forced to pick a side. And I think that we are well positioned here in this moment in time to really be thoughtful and having a conversation where everyone is sharing the responsibility. I've been saying and sounding the alarm since I've got on the council about how we can look at our pilot payments as a viable option to help offset some of the issues that we have been experiencing here in the city of Boston. So I'm excited to hear alternate solutions, one that does not begin and end with impacting our small businesses, because if we focus on that as the only pathway forward, these are folks who are working in our neighborhoods. These are folks that are providing economic opportunities to folks. And I think that what I'd like to get out of this particular hearing is some clarity from the administration. I feel like we heard a set of numbers in 2023 early on, and things have shifted. And so for me, I'd like to get things on the record, and I want to walk out of here with a clear understanding of what really is at play and what we can do. and what's going to take for the council to have the political will and courage to get us there. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Mejia. Council Murphy, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to my previous colleagues for your good, strong opening remarks. I mean, I look forward to today's conversation, something I know when I filed back the beginning of July, a hearing to discuss, and something I talked about, since this plan was sent over to us from the mayor, about finding out what is a plan B, what other options do we have. It's important that we don't just say that we're going to dig our heels into the ground and not compromise. And it worries me that we still haven't gotten the data. So I know that today, thank you to the balance panel. I know many council meetings we have are one-sided, so I'm happy to see that we have fiscal watchdogs and business owners who have been studying this, not just this fiscal cycle, but for decades, and can share their expertise and share out other options that we could use. So I'll continue to ask for the data to support, and to find out what will the actual impact be to our residents, at the same time making sure we're balancing that on our small businesses and our commercial tax rate here in the city of Boston. So looking forward to this conversation and hearing from both sides. And like Councilor Mejia said, I hope we walk away from this meeting today having the information we need on the council to be able to advocate for not just the residents, but also the business owners here in the city of Boston. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Council Murphy. Council Fitzgerald, the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you, everybody, for being here today. This is an important topic. I want to applaud Councilor Flynn and the other co-sponsors of this bill for looking at ways in which to try and reap to reap more benefits to make up for the shortfall that we do have coming. It's similar to a hearing I put in there that we've yet to have, but on diversifying the city of Boston revenues. So it's great to see people using their creative imagination here and figuring out ways to try and impair that. And I look forward to hearing about these specific ideas and asking questions. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Council Braden. The floor is now yours.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for being here. I'm here to listen and learn this morning. The issue, I think I'm on the same page as Councillor Fitzgerald, that when we look at our revenue, that our city budget is supported, is 73% or 75% comes from real estate taxes, and that's that sort of can be a double-edged sword. It helped us during COVID because we weren't reliant on other revenue sources that were being severely cut at the time, but I do think, like 15 years ago, we were all losing our minds because it was 55% of the city budget was paid for by real estate taxes, and here we are at 75. And I really do think we need to diversify our revenue stream so that we are not entirely dependent on real estate taxes. In a time of boom with a lot of construction and new development, that seems to work, but things have changed, and I look forward to exploring other options to try and diversify I know that may not be the specific focus of the conversation today, but I do think we need to diversify our revenue stream so we're not totally so heavily dependent on real estate taxes. So I look forward to learning more this morning, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Councilor Santana, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here, and thank you for the lead sponsors, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Murphy, and Councilor Mejia for bringing this forward, and I'm looking forward to hearing from our panelists this morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Weber, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to be here and learn. I supported the mayor's proposal in the city council. I support the compromise that was passed by the state house, and hoping it passes in the Senate. I think we need to do what we can to protect our residents from having a sharp one-time spike in their residential property taxes, and that the proposal will do that without overburdening our commercial businesses. I think that the proposal would still allow, with the current assessments, I think the amount of taxes collected from commercial properties would still go down slightly. It's just not going down as much immediately as it would otherwise. I think we can have a lot of productive conversations about how to tackle this problem in the long term. Look for other sources of revenue, like Councilor Braden just said. I will just reiterate something that the mayor pointed out in her letter, that the city has tried to get to find other sources of revenue. For example, in the transfer tax proposal that has not passed, and so we need a cooperation from our state reps and state senators to do that. And I think we should definitely factor that into our discussion about how we're going to get something done, so we can find a long-term solution to this issue, which I think we're going to need to do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Weber. Now to our first panel. Panel is Greg Maynard, Boston Policy Institute, Randy Lathrop from Government Relations Liaison for the South End Business Alliance, Ed Horowitz, Executive Director for State Policy at Tufts University, and we have Chris Lee, Board of Director for Small Property Owners Association. My understanding is that, Greg, you have a presentation?
Yep, I do.
All right. The floor is yours.
Excellent. So I think that Ethan has got my presentation up here, and we are just going to get the first slide up there. So is that up here?
Hi, sorry, just 1 second.
Just while he's getting that up, I can introduce myself. My name is Greg Maynard. I'm the co-founder and executive director of Boston Policy Institute, policy-focused nonprofit. Before I start, I'm just going to say a little bit about BPI, and also thank Councilor Ed Flynn for inviting me to be a panelist at today's hearing, and Chair Worrell and all of the staff at Boston Central Office for having me in to testify before this committee. This is the first time I've ever testified before the Boston City Council, and it's an honor to do it on an important issue that I'm passionate about. Just talk a little about BPI. I launched BPI in December 2023 in order to highlight and monitor issues facing cities and towns across Massachusetts through what is happening in the largest city in the Commonwealth, Boston. Leaders across Massachusetts look to Boston for ideas about how to govern their own cities and towns, and BPI's idea is that by fostering a better informed conversation in Boston, the public conversation across Massachusetts will be improved. In this presentation, I am going to go through the fiscal fallout of Boston's empty offices. Thank you so much for getting that up there. That report, what has happened since that report was published, it was published back in February, and how the report's findings can help us understand the new information we've gotten since February. For those of you watching, you can find this report on our website, bostonpolicyinstitute.org. And while you're there, please sign up for our weekly newsletter. We have an AI-generated transcript of city council meetings, so you can see exactly who said what in today's meetings and all the other meetings that have happened since the end of last year. So can you advance the slide, please? Great. So in Boston and across the rest of Massachusetts, cities and towns are dependent on property taxes for their local budget, and in many places, that dependence has increased over the last 20 years. In this slide, you can see that the property tax revenue has increased its share of Boston's revenue from 55% back in 2002 to 75% in 2024. Can you advance the slide? This graphic is from the report, and it shows that property tax dependence, and specifically commercial property tax dependence, makes Boston unique among big cities in America. This uniqueness plays a big role in why falling office values hit Boston's budget particularly hard, and a lot harder than a lot of other big American cities. Can you advance the slide, please? This is the graphic that got the most attention when our report came out in February. BPI projects that Boston faces a $1.2 to $1.5 billion shortfall in commercial property tax revenue over the next 5 years. As we will talk about, based on the city's new numbers, these projections might be too positive, and Boston could face a bigger shortfall than BPI originally anticipated. Can you advance the slide, please? So what can be done about this? We just had all the city councilors talking about how they'd like to see new options for revenue, and we have some of those options listed in our report, but most of them would not generate enough revenue to be real solutions. A transfer tax would generate little new revenue, and it cannibalizes revenue in some ways. Higher pilot payments also wouldn't generate much new revenue, and the other two options, new taxing authority and more state aid, seem extremely unlikely. So that leaves the last option, higher residential property taxes. In late March, less than 2 months after BPI's report was released, the Wu administration announced it was pursuing that last option, albeit in a roundabout way, with the home rule petition to temporarily increase taxes on commercial property over the state mandated limit. Can you advance the slide, please? So BPI's report came out more than 8 months ago, and since then, there has been a new report and new numbers from the city of Boston that corroborated the report's findings. This is the new report. In May, the Tax Policy Center, a joint project of the Brookings Institute and the Urban Institute, published a study that looked at the impact of falling office values on 47 American cities, with detailed analysis of 13 cities, including Boston. Some of that detailed analysis is on this slide. The authors of that report wrote, quote, "The question facing policymakers is not if this, falling office values, will affect local budgets, but how bad it will get." This whole report is worth reading for a sense of how Boston's situation compares to other major American cities. Can you advance the slide, please? The second time BPI's findings were corroborated was by Boston's budget officials when the projections from the assessing department were released last week. These numbers show that despite the Wu administration repeatedly dismissing budget concerns about falling office values and criticizing BPI's report, BPI was correct. Falling office values are a major budget problem for Boston and will be for years to come. Can you advance the slide, please? The numbers the city released last week show residential property values increasing 4% and commercial property values declining 7%. This graphic was produced by Evan Horowitz, who partnered with BPI to produce the report. He did it last night, so thank you very much to him. And as you can see, the 7% decline really stands out. It is a big decline compared to the last 20 plus years of commercial values here in Boston. So this 7% decline is close to half of the total decline in commercial property value that BPI's report expected. BPI expected a total fall in commercial property value would be 25% in real terms over 5 years. This 7% nominal decline in value is closer to 10% in real terms. Put in plain language, Boston's commercial property value is dropping much faster than BPI predicted back in February. BPI's report does not expect that the commercial real estate market will hit bottom until 2029. That means this year's decline in commercial property value and the subsequent increase in residential property taxes is not a one-time event, but rather will continue happening for the coming years. Can you advance the slide, please? Looking at BPI's report, Tax Policy Center's report, reporting across the country about the state of commercial real estate market and the city's own numbers, there is every reason to believe that commercial property values will continue to decline in the years to come. That decline creates a perfect storm for Boston because the city's budget can be wrecked even while Mayor Wu's claim in the letter she sent to the city council on Tuesday that, quote, "This is not a moment of economic crisis or recession," is true. The long-term and unique nature of the problem that Boston faces is why none of the publicly offered solutions, Mayor Wu's commercial tax hike, the Boston Municipal Research Bureau's 2% budget cut, or the council's proposals that today's hearing was called to discuss, really address the budget problems. All of those solutions assume that Boston is facing a short-term problem that can be solved with a short-term fix, and that is just not the case. On the contrary, some of the proposed solutions would very likely make this problem worse. To overcome these challenges, Boston needs to take bold action by either finding a new source of growth or making tough choices around taxing and spending. That requires a much broader and more data-driven conversation about the city's budget than we have had so far this year. Thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation. If you want to advance to the last, oh, sorry, we have contact information for myself and for the author of the report, Evan Horowitz. So, awesome. He was really important in this, so I want to give him a shout out. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wanted to open up to anyone else on the first panel, Randy, Evan, or Chris. Randy, any opening comments or statements?
Sorry, is this the opportunity for us to give our speech or specifically to comment on Greg's presentation?
Yeah, this will be an opportunity for you guys to give your speech and your remarks. But we'll start with Randy first.
Thank you. My name is Randy Lathrop. My husband and I and my son, who's now 45, but was 6 at the time, moved to the city in 1986 when families were fleeing the city. My son grew up in Boston Public Schools and today still lives in Boston. I'm a homeowner, a small business owner, but in the past, I was a community leader and president of my neighborhood association for many years. Today, and I also worked in the administration of Mayor Menino. I worked at the BRA for 16 and a half years, heading up Deputy Director of Community Planning, so I'm well aware of what the city goes through, their challenges. Today, I'm a consultant for the real estate community and also the business community. As a volunteer, I am a member of the South End Business Alliance. The South End Business Alliance, referred as SEBA, was founded in 1978. We have over 150 members. They're of nonprofits, retailers, restaurants, 3 hotels, artists' office, services, and galleries. 60% of our businesses are woman-owned and minorities. I would say half of our businesses are also Boston residents. The good news is, over the last few years, we have worked really hard to fill in our empty storefronts after COVID. I personally, and having worked and been in retail for many years, I owned my own business for 11 years and then worked for a nonprofit. I've worked very closely with the property owners and the commercial real estaters to let them know that we really wanted to have local and independent businesses opening up in the South End. It's not that we're against national retailers, but we really wanted to have local and independent. The good news is we have filled up except 6 empty storefronts in the past few years, and we're proudly to say we have probably 20 new businesses. We have convinced people to buy local, and as you know, 80 cents on the dollar goes back to the community when it's buying local. Our rents today in the South End go anywhere from $40 to $65 a square foot, but most of them are on triple net. As you might know, triple net means that basically if property taxes go up, it basically goes on to the tenants. So the restaurants and the businesses would actually have having to pass that increase on to the consumer, which are residents and people from outside Boston. For instance, I talked to a barber recently and he said, my haircuts used to be $55 and coming out of COVID, I had to raise it to $70. If this tax increase goes in, my haircut will now be $95. People will not pay $95 in the South End. I will have to close my business and leave Boston. This is very concerning to us in the South End that the composition of what our neighborhood is will change drastically. As a person that lives in the South End for 38 years. The downtown neighborhoods are our economic engine. Seaport, South Boston, South End, Beacon Hill, Back Bay, Fenway, and downtown. Our property taxes consume that, and so doesn't our commercial taxes. It's concerning that the administration has not met with any of these downtown neighborhoods to discuss her plan to raise commercial taxes or to discuss her plan about shifting some of the burden onto residents. In June, the South End Neighborhood Associations, along with SEBA, was invited to the Eagle Room to meet with Mayor Wu's senior staff. At that time, I raised, along with the president of SEBA, Elizabeth Butel, the concern we had about, one, lack of resources for our businesses, since we are the only business organization in the city, in the South End, lack of parking for shoppers, and also the raise of commercial taxes. I was promptly cut off in that meeting and told, listen, we are not going to talk about business concerns today. We'll have a separate meeting with SEBA. Since June, I've repeatedly talked to the South End liaison, Sarah Sharp, and she's fantastic, by the way, it's not her fault, about having a meeting with SEBA board to discuss these concerns we had, because we thought it would be something that would be something of a compromise that we could talk to the administration. No meeting was set. In turn, they came back and said, why don't we have a big meeting with the whole entire neighborhood? And my response is, I think you would rather have a meeting with the SEBA board, because on the board, it's basically you either have to have your own business or you work in your own business in the South End. Wouldn't it be better to have a meeting with these business leaders on our board to discuss these concerns and how we can help with the shortfall? To no avail, we've never had a meeting, and now we're talking about the end of October. Triple net will drastically affect our ground floor retailers and our commercial businesses in the South End. Many of them will leave and will end up getting national retailers, which will totally change the composition of our local neighborhoods. It's fine to have national retailers coming to the downtown or the Newbury Street or Copley Place or Prudential Center, but as you all know, our downtown neighborhoods is the heartbeat of our neighborhoods. That's where most of our minority businesses are, and that's how they actually get their work done. Having worked with Mayor Menino for many years, I remember the tough times. Back in those days, the concern was the budget, and he was very fastidious about the budget. I used to start my community meetings by saying to people, if we all come out of the meeting expecting 100%, we're all going to fail. If we can get to 80%, I think we'll win. And it's simply what Council Mahia mentioned today. We need to have a compromise. No one's going to win on this, but compromises have to be made. The 8% increase needs to be cut. The concern is there is a lot of programs going on, and one of them being bike lanes, that could be reconsidered and put onto the burner that has cost a great deal of money. But the budget has to be cut. A hiring freeze needs to be set immediately. When the Boston Globe compared this administration to Mayor Walsh's administration at the same time into the third year, 450 more people have been hired in Mayor Wu's administration than in Mayor Walsh's administration. This extra hiring has really increased the budget. During Tom Menino's administration, I personally, because I was a senior staff member, took a pay cut for 3 years. I think these are things that everybody has to look at. These are tough choices, cutting budgets, putting hiring freezes into place, and also cutting senior staff. But these things can be done to bring the budget back to where it needs to be done. The concern I have is listening today to some of the concerns and looking at Mayor Wu's letter. I have grave concern because she immediately goes after Boston Police, EMS, and Fire Department, saying the cadet program is going to be cut or you can't do this or that. She immediately goes for the heartstrings of safety. Those programs do not have to be cut, but I think other programs have to be cut. I think every department, and this is what happened in the Mayor Menino days, sat down and we carefully looked at our budgets, and cuts were made citywide. Until we look at these budgets carefully and everybody is able to come forth, and maybe layoffs need to happen, but the budget has to be balanced. Mayor Menino was always very proud that we had a AAA bond rating and that the city could look at it as a shining star for the whole nation. But I do believe at the end of the day, it is reckless that we are considering to raise property taxes on commercial property owners, which in turn will go right down to the local business owners in our neighborhood, of which many of them are residents. And let's not forget that. Those residents also might be taxed through increased property tax. However, I think all these solutions need to be on the table, and we need to step up and come up with these solutions. Thank you for listening to me at this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Randy. Evan, can you open in?
Thank you. I really appreciate the invitation to join and the opportunity to share. So we were involved, I run the Center for State Policy Analysis at Tufts. We were involved in the paper whose findings Greg outlined earlier. And when that paper came out, one of the responses we got, one of the criticisms we got, was some version of, you're doing this all wrong. Boston can't have a revenue shortfall. It's impossible. The city is guaranteed to get the 2.5% increase in revenues every year under Proposition 2.5. And I think this way of thinking about revenue is really toxic for the future of Boston, because it's true in some broad sense that the city could always increase its revenues by 2.5%, but it's only true if you're willing to tolerate huge increases in property taxes on residents and businesses and ultimately harm the economy of the city and the region. And what the city really needs is to address both the short-term challenges and the medium-term challenges of collapsing commercial real estate prices is a whole new approach to budgeting, ideally modeled on the state version. So I'm one of these people that gets invited to the consensus revenue hearing for the state every year. We do modeling, we figure out, if you keep the tax rates where they are, here's how much revenue you'll get. If you change the tax rates by a little bit, here's how much revenue you get. And lawmakers then make a decision, okay, are we getting enough revenue? Should we increase the tax rates or not? They don't say, okay, we're entitled to the amount of revenue we got last year plus 2.5% or 3% or 4%, let the rates fall where they may. They say, no, let's start with the rates where they are, see how much revenue we get, and build a budget around that expected revenue. And that's the right way for any city, for any polity to build a budget, to say, start from what did we do last year? How much would we raise if we kept rates in the same place? Is that enough, to build the budget we want to build? If it's not enough, let's have a debate about raising taxes. Instead, what happened this year, as you're all dealing with the fallout, is the city said, well, we always get the 2.5% increase. We're going to do that again. We'll do that. And we won't even think about what it means at first. And then when they realized what it meant, a giant increase in residential property taxes. It's, panic mode. Let's adjust this. Let's go to the state. Let's get an override. Let's, shift the responsibility. But that's only because we started in the wrong place. You need to start in the place of with the rates and then worry about the revenues. And I think it's true that the sort of system has worked for a long time, right? For decades. Just saying, we'll take the maximum has been a good strategy. That doesn't mean it will always be a good strategy, and it is not a good strategy now. Like, burning coal was a tremendously good strategy for economic development for 100 years. It is no longer a good strategy for economic development. There was a time when we realized it had costs that had to be accounted for. The city's practice of claiming the full allowable tax levy as the starting point for its budget has worked, but it will not work. It is not working this year, and it will not work moving forward because of the dramatic decline in commercial real estate values and what that will mean for the tax split and the city budget. One other thing I want to note here is that budget cuts, once you realize that this is what's going on, like that the fundamental problem here is the decision to claim the maximum allowable amount of revenue, budget cuts don't help, right? Because as long as I'm still committed to claiming all of my revenue, I can cut the budget over here, but that just means I have a bigger surplus. I'm still committed to collecting all this revenue, so I'm spending less. But so what? I'm still going to have to raise taxes. So the budget cuts only make sense if you also reduce your the levy, the actual levy, or reduce the rates, right? The only universe in which the budget cuts are helpful is if at the same time you're saying, okay, we are not going to collect the maximum, or we're going to rebate. And that's part of what this, obviously, what this council meeting is about, is that we could rebate some of this. That is effectively the same thing as saying, well, no, we're not going to collect the maximum taxes. We're going to give a bunch of it back. And I think that does seem like a reasonable approach to say, you know what, the best alternative to not having collected these taxes in the first place is just to give back as much as is consistent with the operations of the city budget. One last thing, and then I'll close, which is to echo the point Greg made that the real world figures that were released about a 7% decline in commercial assessments are worse, dramatically worse than what we anticipated in our modeling. And that makes me more worrisome about the future and the degree to which these challenges that you're facing this year are going to get worse in the next 2, 3, 4 years, and how important it is to get the budgeting process right for the new reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Evan. Chris, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Chair Worrell, and thanks to the whole council for the invite. Also, thanks to the Boston Policy Institute, the Center for State Policy Analysis, and the Boston Municipal Research Bureau for contributing so much to the understanding of these issues. My name is Chris Lehman. I'm on the board of directors of the Small Property Owners Association, which represents small property owners across Massachusetts. I'm also one of the founders of GROMA, which is a Boston-based real estate and fintech company that manages small residential properties in the Boston area, including many in Boston itself. I also want to start at the beginning noting that because GROMA is an owner and operator of residential properties, we would benefit from lower residential taxes, but we nevertheless think it's wrong for the city's long-term health to put more of the burden onto the commercial property ecosystem for reasons I'll discuss. I'd like to start by talking a bit about the core function of cities in the modern world, which is to facilitate labor markets. The primary advantage of cities lies in enabling large numbers of people to work together and exchange ideas in ways that result in productivity, enhancing inventions and innovation. Boston is excellent at this. We have more world-beating companies and universities than I can realistically list here. These institutions create enormous wealth, which provides high salaries for their employees, robust demand for small local businesses, and funding for essential government services like law enforcement, fire departments, education, and infrastructure. Without this, Boston and cities like it would not be able to function. The commercial properties that support these businesses are already under stress with lower rental demand and higher interest rates. They already pay a millage rate that's more than double what residential properties pay. Further increasing their tax burden would undoubtedly cause some of the owners, though not necessarily all, of these properties and their tenants to leave for a more favorable business environment, potentially making the tax hikes self-defeating from a revenue perspective and having broader ripple effects throughout the city's economy. The mayor has made an analogy with Menino's reclassification in 2004, but I think this analogy is flawed for a few reasons, some of which have been mentioned already. Property taxes only made up 54% of the city's budget back then, which is still high relative to the national norm, but provided significantly more room to grow than today. The 2004 reclassification also took place in an environment of fiscal discipline. The city's nominal spending increased by 3.8% in fiscal year 02, 2.8% in fiscal year 03, and only 1.5% in fiscal year 04. The last of these was actually a budget cut in inflation-adjusted terms. Full-time headcount for city employees, as Randy mentioned, also decreased by 8.7% during this period. Property owners could therefore be persuaded that the tax increase was necessary to maintain the baseline functioning of city government and not merely a way to sustain irresponsible spending growth. Contrast this with what's being asked for today. The proposed fiscal year 25 budget increases spending by 8% over fiscal year 24 after a decade that has seen spending increase by 54.8%. And full-time employee headcount increased by 7.6%. These increases exceed inflation by far, which has only been 31.5% over the past decade and only 2.2% over the past year. And the city's spending increase is especially notable given that its population has actually declined in recent years from a local peak of nearly 695,000 on the eve of the pandemic to roughly 650,000 today. And the Massachusetts state budget, for reference, increased by only 2.7% this year, a modest gain relative to inflation. So what can we do about this? Many solutions have already been discussed. I think it's useful to note that the city should spend less on services that provide poor results or are otherwise non-essential. Boston Public Schools spends over $30,000 annually per student with poor results and declining enrollment. Other programs seem designed primarily to dispense resources to specific constituent groups rather than to benefit the city broadly. The city should consider reining in spending in these areas before cutting essential services as suggested by Mayor Wu in her letter earlier this week. As for revenue, there are a number of creative solutions that would not only provide funding, but also create positive incentives and externalities for the city. Given our housing crisis, which is driven by insufficient supply, taxing real estate, whether it's in the form of ongoing property taxes or transfer taxes, is a counterproductive approach, discouraging investment in new supply and worsening the underlying crisis. There are creative solutions such as a congestion tax, which, while likely to be contentious as we saw in New York recently, would provide some revenue while encouraging more efficient use of the city and region's roads and public transportation. Boston also has numerous city-owned parcels on which it could expedite privatization and development. Not only would this generate short-term windfalls for the city, it would also convert these parcels from cost centers to ongoing sources of property tax revenue, while simultaneously helping to address the city's housing shortage. Many cities have their own sales taxes, which provide considerable revenue with minimal behavior distortion relative to taxes on, for instance, income. The city should consider seeking state approval for these revenue sources, which would be more conducive to its long-term growth than the commercial property tax increase currently being discussed. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here and welcome any questions.
Thank you to the first panel for the presentation. I want to acknowledge that we've been joined by Council President Louis Jen and also Councilor Pepin. I'm going to turn it over to the original co-sponsors first for their first line of questions, and then I'll go to my council colleagues in order of arrival. I will go off screen. I'll give everyone 6 minutes. When I pop up back on screen, that means you have 30 seconds left. Councilor Flynn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you again for your leadership. I just have a question for any of the panelists, but I highlighted in my opening statement, it's about compromise, it's about working together, it's about listening to each other, respecting each other. What are some of the other options that might work to address the economic challenge that we are in, where we could provide support to homeowners, we can support businesses, but what are some of the other obvious steps we can take now to address the economic challenges we are currently facing?
Counselor, I believe, this is Randy Lathrop, I believe every single city department needs to look carefully at their budgets, and they need to make cuts. Cuts are always difficult to do, but I think they need to do that. I think the hiring of 450 new people in this administration needs to be carefully looked at to say, do some of those people have to be laid off? And those are hard things to do. But having all these folks recently hired and also they, not having a hiring freeze continues to add to this concern I have. I think that also City Hall needs to go back in person and work. The idea that we continue to not allow people to come in and have meetings at City Hall and mostly things are done to Zoom desperately is hurting our downtown area. I worked personally on Downtown Crossing for Mayor Menino, and it became a BID, which thank God it is today. But Downtown Crossing, I say at least 40% of the storefronts are empty at this time. Crime is happening in the downtown in day and night. Crime is happening in the commons. But there used to be over 280,000 people working in the downtown area, and it's probably a fraction of that today. You've got to get people back to work, because if City Hall leaves that, then companies, the mayor could say, along with the city council's support, then companies, you need to come back to work. Because what's happening today is most people are working from home, as we all know, and they're probably making their lunches and having everything in-house, and they're not going out necessarily to that restaurant down the corner to have their lunch or to swing by that card shop to buy a card or to buy a gift. I think it has to come from everybody, I think compromises have to desperately have, and it's really tough to do that. But it's time, we have a serious fault right now. But to put it totally on commercial property owners, many of our property owners, as Chris mentioned, these are small property owners. I have a friend in the South End that owns 2 buildings. She and her husband bought it in the 70s. It helps pay her mortgage. She's not a big property owner. But as I spoke to her last night, she said, listen, I would have to raise the increases on my tenants to take over this increase on commercial taxes. So we can no longer look at those property owners and ask them to put local and independent in, which is the backblood of our businesses today. And these are tough things. I think, there's been a huge amount of building going on with the bike lanes, as everybody knows. My husband's a biker. I understand that's a tough question to have. But I think everybody has to get out their pencil and look at all these cost items, and they have to carefully look at that. And no one is going to be happy at the end of the day. As I always said, 100%, people are not going to walk away with 100%. If we can find a compromise around 70%, we're going to win. So I don't think it's one thing, but I think it's many things to look at.
Thank you, Randy. You're exactly right. It's about compromise. It's about respecting each other. I must have sent 3 or 4 letters in the city of Boston, city council actually. We supported a resolution to bring all city boards, agencies back in person, the ZBA, the licensing, the BPDA. They need to be back in Boston at City Hall, conducting these in-person hearings, encouraging people to come back to work as well in the private sector. I had several conversations with Arthur Jameson about this. He did support my proposal. He wanted to make it happen, but he wasn't having any luck, I believe, trying to get it implemented. But again, I'm calling for the zoning board, the BPDA, the licensing to meet in person. It's critical. Let me ask Greg a question. Greg, the city of Boston, we increased the budget 8% this year. Randy just mentioned almost 500 new hires as well. During this economic challenging period across the country, what is the average increase of other cities, big cities, in terms of their budget? Do you have a sense of how much they increased their budget and maybe what percent that was?
So I can't speak to other cities exactly, but I can, other cities around this region have seen, kind of similar increases in the budget. But I think I guess the thing I'm going to go back to, not to not answer your question, but the thing I'm going to go back to is that, this is not like, I don't think that at this hearing, we're going to be able to solve all of the city's problems. I think what's important to note here is that a conversation like this that we're having here with members of the business community, with landlords, with outside experts has not happened in the city of Boston so far. And this is the first time that myself and Evan Horowitz have been asked to testify before the city council about the report that we released in February, right? We were not asked to testify about this prior to the city passing the budget in June. We were not asked to testify when the city council was considering the tax, this commercial tax hike, before the budget was approved. And so that isn't the fault of this city council, right? This is not, Boston traditionally does not spend a lot of time or effort on its budget. It's something that the mayor does and that the city council and the school committee play, a relatively small role in, right? The city council approved a budget this year that was 99% the same as the budget that Mayor Wu approved in April. And so I think that the big thing that I hope people take away from this meeting today is there is an opportunity here to bring in a lot more of these voices in a more organized, kind of deliberate way, rather than, like a hearing that's organized on 48 hours notice, to talk about these things and talk about the potential solutions for them. We have a model for that up on Beacon Hill. Evan talked about that a bit, the consensus revenue hearing. And on Beacon Hill, we have a governor, we have 2 Ways and Means chairs, and we have nonprofits, all of whom have their own budget experts. Here in Boston, we have a couple of staff on the city council, but nearly all the budget expertise sits in the mayor's office. And until there is a broader, more data-driven public conversation, until the budget is not a black box like it is now, we're just not going to be able to solve these problems.
Well, thank you, Greg. And if we don't accomplish anything other than giving people an opportunity to speak about the impact these proposals will have, maybe that's somewhat of an accomplishment. But I think the business community should be at the table when we are discussing Boston's economic challenges. And let this be a start, but hopefully we can continue listening to the business community, giving them an opportunity to be heard. They're valuable to the city. They play a critical role in our city. They've always been there for the residents of Boston. They're part of the solution. So just want to say thank you. Mr. Chair, I don't have any further questions at this time.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. And I do just want to thank central staff and all the city councilors that do show up to budget hearings and pour in a considerable amount of time into those budget meetings, those working sessions, and those hearings. It is a large lift for our colleagues and central staff and anyone. The whole public is always able to testify at those budget hearings. Councilor Mejia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Morrell. I also just want to uplift and note that in your chairmanship, since you've been on the council, Chair Morrell, you have been all about data and driving information and informing our decision-making process with data. And I'm very encouraged by both what Greg just stated in terms of having key stakeholders at the table, because we don't know what we don't know. And I think what happens in the world of politics is that we pick and choose who we want to play in the sandbox with, and then we want to alienate anyone who does not agree with us. And I think it takes a lot of courage to, in this moment in time, to be a humble leader. And I will just submit for us to really consider how we are moving forward, not only as a council, but just as a practice. A lot of things end up in front of the body without us doing our due diligence, and we are oftentimes just forced to approve a budget or approve an ordinance or whatever the case is without us really being able to fully assess, the pros and cons of everything that comes our way. And I think that this is why we are in the situation that we're in right now. If we would have paid attention to the criticism, quote unquote, we probably would have had this conversation when the report first came out, and we would have been able to have real meaningful dialogue with all stakeholders. And the conversation probably will look very different. But here we are. And the goal is to get to where we need to be without anyone feeling like they're being left behind. That is always my goal. And one of the things that I've been fighting for on the council is an Office of Inspector General. Now, we already have enough staffers, to Randy's point, and I hear you. There's too many people and all that good stuff, but there really isn't a mechanism in place where we are auditing our departments, and not just the return on the investment. Are we being efficient, right? And that is one of the reasons why I've been championing this whole idea of having an Office of Inspector General that would do just that, because then we will be able to identify waste. Not to say that employees are waste, but we could be more effective and more efficient with how we staff. And I think that is an area of growth. My office audited 4 pieces of legislation, because what is the sense of passing ordinances that are in the books if they're not giving us a return on those investments or not meeting the moment? And that requires the city of Boston to do just that in this moment. What offices have we established? What has been the return on those investments? are we producing the results that we set forth in 1986 and 1990? We have to do that reflection as part of this reconciling with the situation as far as it relates to finances. But again, it is humbling. It's a humbling exercise, and I think it takes a lot of courage to say, I said I was going to do X, Y, and Z. Have I done that? And if I haven't done that, did my ordinance meet the moment, or do we need to revise it, right? Like, those are the sort of conversations that I think are part of this discussion, or at least we need to consider. But anyways, let me ask a question, because I can go on in my soapbox forever. Nobody wants to hear me yapping. So, Evan, can you talk to us a little bit more about the transfer fee and just kind of what, I think you mentioned that as something to explore. Can you unpack that a little bit further for those who are tuning in?
You're talking about the proposal for a real estate transfer tax that seems to have stalled? Yeah.
Yes.
First of all, I was enjoying your comments, which I thought were very thoughtful, and I would never characterize as yapping. On the transfer tax, I think transfer taxes have a couple of real downsides. One of them is that they inhibit transfers. When you tax something, you get less of it. And we want people to be able to sell their buildings or their businesses when they sense new opportunities or when there are other people who can make better use of it. And the research is pretty clear that you see pretty dramatic declines in real estate activity from a tax like that. The other is that it drives down prices for the same basic reason, right? If you're people who know the value of the building, they then account for the tax when thinking about the value. So when you add a tax to the transaction, you reduce the value of the building. Again, there's a lot of research on there. So, when you're doing this on the residential side, so like if it were just a transfer tax on high value residential real estate, the kind of mansion tax model, I think the city could probably raise some revenue that way, some meaningful revenue. There's a lot of high value real estate. It's a very strong market, right? So the risk of reducing transactions or the risk of price declines are not as prominent. But on the commercial side, it's totally different, right? The commercial market is completely frozen up and prices are already declining. So when you apply a transfer tax to the commercial market, what you see is basically like a seizing up of the market and a further decline in prices. So, it really is split this way, where a transfer tax with a threshold, $1 million threshold or a $2 million threshold, would probably have some pretty negative consequences for the city, because most of the buildings, or at least a large proportion of the buildings affected, would be commercial buildings that are not in a good position to absorb a tax like this right now. Whereas a more targeted transfer tax just on the residential side probably has much more upside in terms of raising revenue without too much distortion, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and Councilor Burrell, you are trying to tell me I only have 30 seconds left? Because you're back on screen. I'm gonna have to start checking my own time here. But one more question before you mute me. It would be helpful for our audience, and I always like to position it like this because, we have a lot of folks that follow our work who are not in the weeds of politics, because we just don't. We just have other things that we have going on in our lives, right? So I think it would be really helpful if you can help us understand this whole idea of, the narrative has been that your report and some of the reactions from some of the colleagues on the council was fear-based, and it was, your whole scenario was pretty much dismissed. Now that we are bringing it back, you mentioned something about 2029, like this is not going to go anywhere. So can you help us understand that narrative now even a bit further, just because I think it's important for us to get this on the record, just because it feels like it could be a pattern.
Absolutely. So probably the key takeaway from our report on the commercial real estate industry in Boston is that this is unlike most economic problems. Lots of economic problems are like, oh, there's a crash and then you rebound. Oh, we have a recession and then we come out of it. That's not the shape of this particular problem, because of remote work, because a lot of it is driven by the reality of remote work. And admirable as, for instance, Randy's advocacy was just now about getting more people downtown and back to work, I think that is an uphill battle. And the new reality of the US economy and the Boston economy is that people are going to continue working remotely. And what that means is that offices are going to continue to be worth less than they were in the pre-remote work age. We are not going back to a time when offices are as useful for businesses and therefore as valuable. So this decline in office values is not the kind of thing that happens and then bounces back, which is what happened in 2003, 2004, the last time we changed the split. This time around, it's going to fall and it's going to stay down. So the city needs to adjust not for this year, but for its new economic reality where offices will maybe never be as valuable as they were. And therefore, the ability to tax them is going to be limited indefinitely moving forward.
Thank you. That's like that's the coming to Jesus conversation that we need to have, and it seems like people are struggling with it. But so thank you for that. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. Councilor Murphy, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to this panel. Very informative so far, so thank you. My first question, I think it's more political, not an economic question, but why are your numbers, why is your report so different? That's a question I'm getting from residents. I think Councilor Mejia just touched on it also, but because they want to believe the administration, right, who's telling them that these are the numbers and this is the only option, there's no budging. And now I feel like it's become more political where we're, holding town halls to push a narrative that, to me, especially, listening to you all today, it's one-sided and it's contradicting your reports and what you're saying. So if any or all of you want to kind of touch on that, because it's a question I know a lot of people are reaching out asking about.
Well, I can answer that question, Councilor. This is Gregory Maynard.
Yeah, no, thank you.
So I don't think there's actually as much daylight between what the administration believes and our report. I think there's a lot of daylight between how the administration describes the problem that it is facing in our report. In budget hearings that we've seen over this past year, the administration has refused to provide forward-looking guidance, refused to look into the future on what will happen to property values. And so everything is treated as if it's a one-time event that will not continue into the future, right? I went to the mayor's town hall last night, and that appeared to be what she was saying on this issue. And so, if this is a one-time event, then our report is wrong. But we don't believe it's a one-time event, and the administration has offered no evidence that it is a one-time event. I think this kind of gets back to my point I made for Councilor Flynn around the budget conversation in Boston, which is that there just isn't a lot of budget expertise in the city of Boston. The city council has very little. There's not a lot in the city of Boston, right? The fact is that Boston Policy Institute, an organization that was formed in less than a year ago, launched this report and did this, and we were in a position to do that because this is a relatively empty lane in policymaking here in Massachusetts. And so I think a lot of this is just because the budget is not a particularly well understood thing here in Boston. And so it is relatively easy to have two messages that look substantially that are actually pretty similar.
No, thank you. One thing too, home rule petitions can be sent up to, written in a way and sent to the State House where we give the State House the power to make changes. This one wasn't written that way. So word was, that last minute vote, when it got through the House, there was promises made, there were numbers shifted, but that was just a promise, right? Like we used to call it a gentleman's handshake. And now there's talk about, no budging, but maybe there'll be a little bit of compromise to get it through the Senate. Can any of you speak on the fear of that, what if then we don't make the changes that were promised, especially because it's not legally able to make changes to the home rule petition formally?
Yeah, so I can answer this. Is Greg Maynard again. I think that's a question that would probably best be given to Ways and Means Chair Leibowitz and Minority Leader Mike Moran, right? They're the ones who negotiated this with the mayor based on press reports. So that's something that is a question for the Boston delegation.
Well, I can
Yeah,
say.
yeah, but well, how do you feel though, like to the residents, knowing that, because a lot of them feel like, oh, well, it was passed and now it's written into it, and just like that understanding that, anyone listening in here too, that there was, there was a conversation, but it didn't actually make any permanent change.
I mean, Council Murphy bring up some good points here. I mean, the frustration we have at SEBA is, and we're also, a lot of us are also residents, is these discussions have not happened in the downtown neighborhoods. The downtown neighborhoods, like I said, is our economic engine. We're the ones that have the higher priced homes, and we have businesses and so forth. Those discussions should have happened last spring. But when we asked for those discussions to happen in June, to no avail, they were never set up. So we didn't even have the data that was coming in from these two gentlemen that spoke today, and also this letter that Mayor Wu released recently, to be able to come up with some solutions, because I think everybody wants a solution to the problem. And for my many years working at the BRA, I was head of community planning for the BRA. When we would replan or rezone a neighborhood, we would hire people from the outside to come in and work with us in real estate to tell us if this zoning would last for the next 10, 15, 20 years. These were experts in the field, and there's no way that you could have somebody like that you could hire in-house that could do that. But we were able to I always had money put aside in my budget that I could hire people like the Pam McKinneys and the Drew Lefts and folks like Yanni Tippis to come in and relook at this to say, is this actually going to work or is it not going to work? And I think that's what's really important here, because the reports we got today are very important information. And I think somehow, as city councilors, you need to have some experts work with you. I mean, it's crazy that this discussion is happening today, and now we're in October. And it's like, okay, let's get this done. Let's raise taxes on residential. Let's raise taxes on commercial. And if it's not done, we're going to start, cancel the cadet program. It's all fear and monger. And that's my real concern at this point. I mean, they had a meeting in West Roxbury. They're supposed to be going out and having a meeting tonight in Charlestown. Why aren't the meetings happening in the downtown neighborhoods? I mean, we're the ones that are going to feel the burden of this. And also,
I agree.
And the big point I have is, if the retailers and the ground floor uses, their rents go up, they're going to have to make layoffs. They're going to have to lay people off to figure out how to come, because they can only raise their prices so much.
And many of those are residents, like you said at the beginning.
And many of them are residents.
Yeah.
I mean, out then 60% of our stock are minority and women-owned businesses. I mean, there's no simple solution on this, but you have to go back to the original budget. Every department needs to cut. There needs to be a hiring freeze, ASAP. You need to look at the 450 people, according to the Boston Globe, that were recently hired. Maybe some of those have to be laid off. I mean, for instance, I had a laugh this morning. Councilor Flynn and I were discussing. I mean, Mayor Wu right now presently has a grant where if you're a homeowner during Halloween, you can get $150 to give out candy on Halloween in front of your house. And people are applying for it. It's outrageous that the city is giving $150 to a small community organization or a street to give out Halloween candy on Halloween. Now, I know this is just a little piece to talk about, but
the last thing too, if I could, Randy, because it ties into this, and I know my buzzer will come out, but I think the understanding for people to have a better understanding that the commercial tax burden, many people think we're just talking about these big national companies downtown.
Right.
Oh, and they can take the hit. But like you eloquently stated at the beginning, and I've been saying from the beginning also, is we're talking about our small coffee shops like in Rosendale, the ice cream shop that just opened, the dry cleaners, the bookstores. They're local, they're resident owned, a lot of them minority owned, resident workers. And we're spending millions in ARPA funds to support our struggling small businesses that will be part of the burden if it shifts to our commercial. So that understanding too, that we're not just talking about like State Street or, the Boston Hotel. We're talking about, the local dry cleaner, the coffee shop you go to in the morning. But at the same time, we are spending millions to support them.
Right. And we have,
There's money, but it's like cycling around.
and we have over 20,
Thank you, Council Murphy.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
Council Murphy. As the Ways and Means Chair, I had the great opportunity of leading the budget process. And in that process, we did go line item by line item. Every department took a look at every vacancy. And what we were trying to do was reallocate some of those vacant positions. And because we did not get consensus amongst, what you're referring to, Greg, is the ability to move. I think you said 2% of the budget, but that takes consensus on the body to be able to move more. So just want to say that we did go line item by line item into the budget process and was pushing and advocating for some of these vacant positions to be reallocated. However, not everyone on the council agreed with that method. Councilor Fitzgerald, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. First, I just want to make sure, I know that this is, these are orders for hearing to discuss the $15 million towards residential taxpayers and to explore utilizing surcharges to provide residential tax relief. I wonder, is that more for the second panel? Because I was interested in getting into the details of those. And it seems like so far, and I'm not against it, so far the discussion has just been about the tax proposal overall. But I was kind of hoping we would get into these specific instances here of how we could better sort of diversify our tax relief. But maybe that'll be for the second panel. My comment before my question, my comment on just sort of this overall is, I think the thing that folks need to understand is when they look at what's coming less, like I'd rather take the gradual hit over time. Like what resident would not want that? I don't disagree. But I think what folks have to understand, at least the way I see it, is over time, the resident is still going to have to pay that full nut of the $768 over the course of just 3 years. So if $768 is a lot of money to a lot of families per year in Boston, and I understand that. But if you're going to get there in 2 or 3 years' time anyway, whatever that length of time is, you as a family financially, you're sitting on the razor's edge anyway. I mean, it's the difference between saying, the $700 this year will make me leave the city versus, well, I'm probably going to have to leave the city 365 days later anyway, right? Because I won't be able to take the next year increase. And so I worry that we do that in feeding the residents too much of the small crumbs now and worrying about the big meal later on, saying, look, if you could take this gradually, and everybody will say, absolutely, do not raise my taxes. I'll go whatever is less money out of my pocket. And I get that. But we do that at the risk of irreparable harm to our downtown and commercial properties, which if we further disincentivize folks to move their business here, attract people here, create jobs, invest and build, then people are going to want to move out of the city voluntarily, never mind, because there won't be much of a city to go on. There's a lot of things that I think that the commercial sector can bring, especially given what Boston is right now as a city that leads in life sciences, that can and should, and I believe will lead in clean tech, tough tech, the new jobs of the future. We're a coastal city where I'd love to do a lot of the resilient stuff in-house. And so you have to be open to the business community to allow them to come in here, set up shop, and create those jobs that will be the jobs of the future for the residents of Boston. So I just worry about someone saying, hey, stick around for another year, but you're probably gonna have to leave again next year if this increase really is too much, versus, well, we might just lose this big opportunity of creating and investing and planning for our city in the future by disincentivizing folks to come to and commercially build here. So, I think there's a lot of things we can do in terms of cutting the budget. There's obviously continue to build. I believe we have to allow for more building, and that's to grow the property tax base. That's what we're relying on. So we have to still, in this current form, be reliant on that. I believe cuts to the budget could be made. There's things such as a non-essential goods tax wouldn't exactly get to residents or commercial, but tourism is sort of back to its pre-COVID numbers. And how do we make sure people coming here to spend money and visiting, how could we get on them before we ask our residents of it? And I don't know, there are other things. I mean, could you excise taxes on the mopeds and scooters that are going around? Is that a two birds and one stone act that we could do there? But there are other methods that I think can do this. But I do still always want to look to the future of how we diversify our revenues. Should we rely solely on property tax revenue? Should we look for additional ways to bring in other revenue, like I sort of mentioned, and I believe we'll have a hearing on that too about the diversifying. And again, kudos to the sponsor for getting creative here and how to do these. I would love to get into what's this 15 million look like and this surcharge stock. If any folks on the panel could speak to that specifically, that'd be great to know. And sorry, I know I spent most of my time talking, but I'd love to hear an answer on that.
So, Counselor, thank you so much for the question. So just to answer, there was a lot in there. So I just want to take the first part of your question here about whether residents who get a tax cut, like if this passes, like how much longer does that actually give them in terms of timing? Please. So it's a really important point because I think this is where the Wu administration's claims that the 2004 tax shift that Mayor Menino did is a solution really fall apart. If you look at that graph in my presentation around commercial values over time, what you'll see is that during the life of the tax shift back in 2004, commercial values rose over the course of that. And so they were rising year over year, right? So that meant that when the tax shift ended in 2009, residential property taxes didn't just shoot up. In 2024, like we've been talking about, there should be no expectation that commercial property values are going to see significant increases in the years to come, right? We are talking about significant declines. And so rather than this being something that's gradually easing in, what we're seeing is that even if the mayor's tax shift is passed on Beacon Hill, rather than an easing in, this is much more like a rubber band being pulled and then released at the end of this thing being over and taxes shooting way up. Evan did a report, worked on a report for the Greater Boston Real Estate Board on the original proposal for 5 years that addressed some of this. So he can speak to it more, but I think that's the big, the 2004 example relied on commercial property values rising, and there is just no evidence that we are going to see that, especially over this shorter 3-year window that the mayor has agreed to.
Thanks. Okay, Evan, you want to add anything to that, or even about
that characterization is correct. Like, it's not just that you're deferring; it's that you make the later jump much bigger in terms of rates for residents. So you worsen the 1-year spike; you just push it out a couple of years. I will add also that this whole conversation is in the context of a good economy, and I don't want to lose sight of this. The national and state economy is strong right now, and you are already facing these kinds of pressures. There is no guarantee that 2 years from now, 3 years from now, the economy will still be strong, and all of these questions get a lot harder. And this, again, speaks to, like, if we can't fix it now, when things are good and there's a lot of resilience to draw on, think how much harder it's going to be to fix then if we're kicking the can.
Well, thank you all very much for your time, Chair. I'm pretty sure I'm close to time anyway, so.
Yeah, but I don't know if anyone answered your question around the surcharge.
No.
I don't know if anyone wants to take a stab at that, or, all right. I guess we'll ask the next panel, Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thanks, Councilor.
Yep, absolutely. Now we'll go to, sorry, I lost who was next. Councilor Santana, the floor is yours. All right, I don't think Councilor Santana is still in the room. Councilor Weber, the floor is now yours.
Okay, I do believe Councilor Braden was before me, and so I don't want to take.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Time.
So, thank you, Councilor Braden. The floor is yours.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. I think this is a really important conversation. You know, a very important one we should be having a lot more frequently than we actually do. given the constraints of what we can actually achieve in the budget process as the legislative body in the city. One issue that I think we've talked about, again, I think it's almost like a systemic problem that we've done away with the having regular annual reports from all departments and getting a better insight into what the goals and objectives of the department are, what their projected budget is for the future going forward, but also how did we spend the money last year and did we achieve the goals and objectives of last year's budget? And then having a 5-year sort of, rollout of objectives so that, that the policies actually get followed through and you get completion in a timely way. I think we dropped the ball on a lot of these issues. And to be frank, we have had an incredible, in the last 5 years since I've been on the city council since 2000 with COVID and 3 mayors and all the rest of it, we've had an incredible amount of turbulence in our system. But I think getting back to the practice of having annual reports for our city departments and having more transparency for the city and for the residents of the city to know what city money's been spent on would be really good. I also would love to get some more insight into the Prop 2.5. Like we hear about cities voting to have a Prop 2.5 override, but do we ever have the option of doing like an underride so that that we actually trim the revenue to match what the realities of the situation are in the moment? Those are two. One's more of a comment and the other's more of a question. So whoever would like
Can I speak to the Proposition 2.5 question?
Yeah.
The short answer is yes. Every year is an opportunity. There's no requirement that you collect the full maximum. It is a ceiling, not a floor. You can set your tax levy wherever you like at any level. It just cannot exceed the 2.5% plus new growth increase stipulated by the law. And there's some question about like whether this means, let's say you go under, does that affect future years? My reading of the language is that it does not, that your future years depend on the level of the levy limit, not the actual amount you collect. So if you collect less than the levy, it's not like, oh, well, we can only get 2.5% more the next year. No, you still get 2.5% above the limit from the years before. So that is always an option. There's no requirement that you collect the maximum amount.
The other thought I had was about, our commercial classification. Is there a way that we can, some of our buildings are high value, modern, state of the art, incredibly new developments. And then we have, our main streets districts are commercial properties, but is there a way we can do a subcategory so that we're not taxing all of our commercial property at the sort of same rate? Or is that something we've looked at?
We have looked into that. Our understanding is that it is not legal or not consistent with Massachusetts laws to establish further subcategories of the property tax.
So that's something we need to change at the state level.
To jump in on that. There's also, that is part of the compromise that was struck between Mayor Wu and the State House, is creating and you guys had a hearing about it. Councilor Coletta sponsored a hearing order about this to create like a kind of a residential tax exemption for small businesses, is something that's been considered. And I think it's part of the compromise that was struck between the mayor and the State House. But to go back to the earlier question, the council actually has a role to play in setting the tax rates for like the underride that you spoke about. That's the rate setting meeting that the council does every year in either late November or early December. You're setting the tax rates not for this year, right, but for Q3 of 2025, right? So effectively, at the end of this year, you set the tax rates that the city of Boston uses to create their budget going forward, right? So the council does have an enormous potential role to play here in the next 6 weeks in deciding whether or not you're going to choose to raise all the way to the levy at that rate setting meeting in November, right? And other towns and cities across Massachusetts, particularly gateway cities, choose not to go to the limit every year, right? Those are cities where homeowners pay the majority of the property taxes and where, which is not the case in Boston. But that's a power that the council has, and that's an opportunity for the council institutionally to really, kick the tires on what they want next year's budget to be, right? You're giving you're giving the administration basically how much money they get to spend in the budget that you'll look at in June 2025.
I also, back to the issue of the transfer tax. I'm a big supporter of the transfer tax. I'm really disappointed that we couldn't get it. I live in Alston, Brighton. This neighbourhood is a incredible amount of speculative investment. Proponents come along, they develop a plan, they design get a project approved by the BPDA and through the zoning board, and then they flip it and they make tens of millions of dollars in some cases. And I think in terms of our budget to develop more affordable housing and workforce housing for the city workers, and so they can actually afford to stay here, the transfer tax is a critical tool to help with that. The estimate is that it would generate up to $100 million that we could plow into affordable housing for and workforce housing for city workers and businesses in the city, because it's harder and harder to find workers who can actually afford to live in the city if you're paying, especially in our low to moderate middle income workers. So how am I doing for time, Mr.? Oh, here he comes. I think my time's up. Thank you. I'll continue to listen in and off camera. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Braden. And I do want to note that, in tough times, I think what makes our economy and our budget so strong is our reliance on property tax. Part of the reason why we were able to get so creative and use ARPA dollars for different transformative investments is because, majority of that money was not going to lost revenue. And that was based on our reliance on property tax. And then also, can you guys explain like levy ceiling, Evan or Greg? And then also like where are we at in terms of like the levy ceiling?
Yeah, so you're talking about the other side of so Proposition 2.5 has basically two parts. There's the part we've been talking about, which is year by year, cities are allowed to increase the amount of taxes they collect by 2.5% plus whatever new development has happened in that year. So that's the part we've been talking about. There's another side where the total tax collection can't exceed 2.5% of the total assessed value in the city. Boston is not particularly close. It's not a concern for Boston, that part of Proposition 2.5. There are cities and towns that are up against that limit, but Boston is not particularly. That's not a worrisome concern for Boston.
Right. My understanding is that we're way below the levy ceiling right now. Councilor Weber, the floor is now yours.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. I guess I think most of my questions are for Mr. Maynard and Mr. Horowitz. Just following up on that point, are you aware of any municipalities in Massachusetts that have taken less than the 2.5% from year to year?
Lowell, a number of communities across Massachusetts have taken less than 2.5% over the course of their the 42-year history of Prop 2.5. Like there's I can put together the Massachusetts Taxpayers Foundation does a good rundown of municipal finances. That's a really useful guide, and that's something that I can follow up with you about. But yeah, a number of communities, particularly gateway cities that depend heavily on homeowner, or any communities that are really dependent on homeowners for their property tax revenue.
Okay, and I guess so. Evan, is your understanding is that if we took less than 2.5%, that we could take more than 2.5% in the following years?
That is my understanding.
Even though it's Prop 2.5, so we could take 4.5%.
Yes. So
somewhere later.
That is my understanding. That it's the 2.5 is based on the previous year's limit, not the previous year's actual tax take. So that yes, there is room for kind of making up revenue that you forego.
Has anyone done that?
I don't believe has happened. Although I'm not 100% on that. But again, like part of the constraint of Proposition 2.5 is a legal constraint, right? You're not allowed to do more than this. Part of it is an economic and political constraint. If you do this, it might be really unpopular or really ruinous to your economy. So, you're always balancing these things. And if you go under in 1 year, that's usually because it's unpopular to raise the limit or it's dangerous. And so the odds that like the next year you could do more than the limit are very low because the economic situation, the political situation don't turn over that fast.
And just to add a fourth point there onto Evan's thing, there's also a legal component of this, right? Which is that like one of the things that we're running into here is that Massachusetts does a lot of really innovative things at the state house, and a lot of local governments do a lot of really innovative things around governing. But the budget is not a place where Massachusetts cities and towns do a lot of innovation. Like there was a lot of challenges to Prop 2.5 right after it was passed. But for the last, certainly this century, there haven't really been a lot of like creative responses to Prop 2.5, and I think that's one of the places where having a consensus revenue hearing, like Evan had spoken about, kind of broadening this conversation and making it more data driven. There are opportunities for outside folks to come in and talk about this stuff because these are conversations that are not happening anywhere else in the state of Massachusetts, right? That really only Boston kind of has the resources in terms of a full-time council and economy that's big enough that nonprofit experts will focus on it. So like this is something that certainly could be its own hearing order, Counselor.
Okay, and then I think in your presentation you highlighted the part of the mayor's presentation where without legislation there would be a 27% increase in residential property taxes. I think in that same presentation it says that the effect without legislation, the effect with legislation is that commercial rates would still go down 0.5%, right? So
not rates, payments, commercial total payments.
So payments are still going down 0.5%. That's like, I mean, I've been troubled by this particular talking point because I think rates are the right way to think about it. Let's say the state raised. Can I just stop you there? Because I think the numbers. I think you're right. There's not a lot of daylight in the numbers. I think we're just debating on what to do with those numbers. Do you agree, both of you or one of you, that with legislation, even if this passes, that the commercial amounts or rates will go down slightly?
No, I do not. The amounts will, the rates will not. The amounts will, but the rates will not.
Okay, the rate will go up, but the amount will go down. The amount that they're paying will go down. So when we're talking about passing on extra costs to the tenants, that does not seem possible where you're actually paying less.
Well, it does because they're poorer. And that's the point I'm making.
Because they don't have enough, because they're going from they're supposed to get an extra 6% or something, and they're only going to have an extra 0.5% in their coffers.
No, because their buildings are worth less. Because their businesses are worth less. Like that's the point. They have less money to pay these things, so you're asking more of them. That's why when we talk about taxes, we focus on rates because it's a measure of your ability to pay, and they have less ability to pay. So you're asking them to pay a higher percentage of their ability to pay.
But in terms of what they're actually going to have in their pocket from these taxes, their taxes are not going up. Their rates may go up, but the actual amount that they're paying.
But I disagree with your framing. Taxes going up means rates going up. Those are not different things. And
yeah, but the
suggestion that taxes going up means dollars going up is just an inaccurate way to talk about taxes.
But do you disagree that the taxes would actually go down?
I'm saying the dollars go down, the rates go up. I would always say when rates are going up, taxes are going up. That is the right way to think about whether taxes are going up or down, or the rates going up or down.
Yeah, Greg, I'll let you answer 1 second. If you could also just address, I think in the town hall last night we saw how rates are for commercial. There was a statement from Representative Gonzalo that the rates are actually like half of what they were for commercial real estate from like I think 2 decades ago. I don't remember the actual data. So I just ask you to also address that. Are rates at like a half of what they used to be for commercial landlords? And you can answer my question earlier.
That was for Greg, right?
Oh, sorry, because I cut you off, Greg. That's why I thought you also.
The thing that I want to point out here is that you're talking about offices. Office values are falling in the city of Boston, but it's not. I don't believe Randy would actually be able to answer this. I don't believe it's the case that in the neighborhood commercial districts, that in the neighborhood business districts, that values are going down. And so, since to Councilor Braden's point, all commercial is taxed in the same way. In places that you've seen significantly more economic activity since COVID, right? Out in, for instance, in your district, Councilor, right? Like the BPDA's economic report card from earlier this year showed that there was a lot more business activity in the neighborhood business districts in your district, right? It's true of basically all of the city councilors. And so since those people are subject to the same rate, while office values are certainly going down, the business districts, I believe their values are staying the same or going up. But I think that's something that Randy could speak to. And I think this is a really important distinction to make, because the city commercial taxpayers are not all people in downtown office buildings. There's also commercial buildings in every business district in this city.
Okay, although if their property values are going up, their rates would go up regardless of whether we pass this. This is
right.
passed.
You shift all this burden onto them, and that increases rates. That increases how much they are paying. Sorry, I'll pass it over to Randy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, rents are only going up; they're not going down. In smaller neighborhoods like the South End, it goes anywhere from $45 up to $100 a square foot, which is crazy, but averages more $45 to $65 a square foot at triple net. So I think you're totally right on that. But if it continues to rise with this increase, retailers will have to close and leave our Boston neighborhoods and go elsewhere, because they're not going to be able to cover that expenses. But no, retail rents are only going up.
Oh, okay. But it just, Randy, if the commercial landlord, if their amount that they're paying is actually going down just from year to year, and let's say it goes down less than it would otherwise, let's say because they've lost value, that in that scenario, they're not passing on the extra cost. The rent may go up, but it's not because of the taxes, because of their tax burden.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, let's not forget that during COVID, a lot of these commercial property owners, and I'm talking about small property owners, were not taking rent in at all. And I know a lot of those property owners that were forgiving people's rent 2 and 3 years during COVID. So they're now trying to make up that. And there was a lot of business owners, and I can name them, that said, you know what, I'll take a pause, don't pay me rent. Right? Let's see if we can work out a solution. I don't want to lose you. So I think a lot of those small property owners in our downtown, in our neighborhoods, are kind of coming back and trying to make up for what they lost during COVID.
Okay. So sorry, I just have limited time, Randy. I apologize, but we did file a hearing order on commercial property vacancies, and I think the trend for commercial landlords is to keep, I think it's 5 to 10% of their properties intentionally vacant, so they can wait for that national chain to come in and pay them a lot of rent. And that hurts local businesses. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it varies from neighborhood to neighborhood. I know in the South End we're very active with our small property owners to say, please don't do that. And we're also telling them where rents are today, because I know 2 or 3 local property owners have continually rejected national chains for coming in and left their storefronts empty until they can get the right renter in there. So I think it really varies. It really varies. I think you have more. I think the Newbury Streets of the world can put more nationals, the downtown, but we're talking about JP and South End and Roxbury and West Roxbury or whatever. I mean, I think it really varies.
Okay, I'm sorry. The chair's back on. I just have one quick question. Randy, we're talking about, the budget and budget cuts and hiring freezes. I have to say, I've only been on the council for 10 months. Maybe I'll get this call at some point. I've never gotten a call saying, there's too many teachers in my kid's school, or my road gets paved too much, or the response time of the ambulance was too quick. We need fewer ambulance drivers. I think that when we're providing these services, whether it's schools, police, firefighters, street paving, these benefit the businesses. And I would just, in terms of that, I think, the lead sponsor here, Councilor Flynn we have a huge shortage of staff on the police department. He's called for 500 more police officers. The police officers are being stretched too thin, and being, forced to work overtime and they don't want to. In terms of like where we would cut, I think what we pay for our salaries is the largest cost in our budget. I don't know what departments you actually, think we should be cutting. We lost money in the school budget from federal funding. Every school that lost a music teacher or a social worker, I heard about that. People don't get enough services in their schools.
But I think we have to go back to the Parks Department, the Transportation Department. I mean, we all know the BPPDA, which is now the Planning Department. There's all these departments, and this is what happened during the mini administration. They all had to tighten up, and they all had to go back and look at these things and had to see what they could cut back. I mean, I know I'm not talking about, cutting back the police and EMS and fire department and all those things, but I think every department has to carefully look at their departments to see if there can be cuts made during these tough times. Can there be they need to put a hiring freeze in. They need to, 450 more employees than the last mayor put in. Come on. If it would be great if the economy was doing really well. For Boston, we're having a deficit right now. We need to carefully look at that. Senior staff, I was one of them. I took a pay cut for over 5 years on my salary during those tough times. Did I want it? No, but I did it. I think we have to look at that. Look at every option that we've discussed today. I don't think it's just saying, oh, well, the police can't happen or this can happen. I'm not talking about those things, but I think everything has to take a look at it. There's a lot of departments that have opened up that I'm saying, what do they actually do? Come on. We all knew. There's a department about community engagement. I don't even know what those folks do. And I've lived in the city for 38 years. That's a big department that we're not even seeing them out in the community. I think we need to carefully look at this. It's hard to make these decisions, but I think city council, as leaders of all these neighborhoods, need to say back to the administration, every department needs to look at this.
Well, okay, yeah, thank you very much. Back to you, Chair. But I would just say, certainly, community engagement. That's another phone call I've never gotten, is that there's too much community engagement. We want less of it. So, I think if you look at parks, you just pick that we looked at it in the budget. We looked very closely. There's over 100 vacancies. That department is stretched too thin. They can't fill the vacancies because they can't pay enough to bring people who can afford to live in Boston and work for the Parks Department. So, I'm skeptical about that being the solution. But I thank you, Randy, for your testimony and for everyone else. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. And just to kind of level set, we're talking about a shift, in terms of, where the responsibility lies. There is no deficit inside of the budget. Just wanted to, kind of level set on there's no shift. And then just kind of reiterate what Council Weber had just stated, is that, we did take a look at every line item in every department. And that was the exercise that we took in this budget process. And we were trying to reallocate those vacant positions out. So just wanted to let everyone know that, that is something that we have been exploring in the budget. And then we also hear from council colleagues, more hiring or not to, remove any vacant positions as well. So we went through this exercise and just wanted to kind of reiterate and state that for the record. I also want to acknowledge that we've been joined by Council Coletta Zapata, but now we will go to Council Pepin. The floor is now yours. Okay, Council Pepin's not here. Council Coletta. All right, I guess I will ask my questions. I'm gonna put my timer on first. I guess my first question is for Evan and Greg on the chart where you're pointing out the $1.4 billion shortfall. Can you explain this in further detail? What we're looking at?
Yeah. So, I mean, the chart's not up, so I'll use my finger, right? But there are basically two lines. You have one line going straight up, right? And what that is showing is the historical trajectory of commercial property tax collections. That is, what the city has collected over time and what you would expect the city to have continued to collect over time if we didn't have remote work and COVID and high interest, if we didn't have the crisis of the moment. And then, so that becomes a dashed line because it's what would have been. That's the counterfactual. That's what the city should have expected or reasonably expected to collect in dollars from commercial property taxes over time. The other is our modeling for what we think the city is actually going to collect. 2025 to 2029, and that's based on a few assumptions about both the change in assessments, the decline in the value of these buildings, and also the amount of time it takes for that decline of value to work its way into the tax system, right? Because these things do get reassessed all the time, but usually it's step changes. They'll lower the assessment by, what we saw across the board 7% this year, but another 5% next year, 2%, whatever. It takes time. There are challenges. So it's the phasing in of that. And what you're looking at for the 1.4 is the gap between what the city could reasonably have been expected to collect based on historical precedent and what we model the city's actually going to collect under consistent tax rates, right? So that's assuming we don't change tax rates.
Got it. So this does not. So this basically, that top line is a measure of pre-pandemic growth. Okay, but you are under. Yeah, I guess we both understand that after the pandemic, growth has flatlined or remained more stagnant.
Well, that's the whole point. But yes.
Right. I just think that's a tough measuring stick to reach, and I also want to know, what was your projection for FY25, and how does that still give you confidence that you're on track with this $1.4 billion?
I mean, to Greg's point, we're not on track. Our projection for FY25 was a higher collection than is consistent with the assessments that the mayor shared recently. So we did not anticipate a 7% nominal decline in FY25 in assessment values. We anticipated something like a 2% nominal decline. So no, we are not on track. The track is well below the line that we're modeling here.
And to further clarify, this isn't really this isn't a loss of revenue. This is more of a shift from one responsible party to another, right? From residential.
I mean, I think that's up to the city. It is a loss in the amount of revenue you can collect with prevailing tax rates. So there's always the option to raise tax rates. Like, you want to keep collecting more revenue, you can raise tax rates. But I think the right way to think about this is a loss of the amount of revenue you can collect by sticking with the tax rate that the city has stuck with for the last 5 to 7 years.
But but we're still collecting the same. So if we collect the 2.5% next year, right? It would just shift to the residential opposed to the commercial. It's not a loss of revenue. It's not
a loss of revenue because you're asking residents to pay a lot higher tax rate.
Right.
Instead of paying.
It's not a loss of revenue.
But then you could never lose revenue. By that logic, the state could never lose revenue. It would just increase the sales tax, or it would just increase the income. Yes, if you increase taxes, you won't lose revenue. But the way to measure this, I think, the right way to measure it is to say, well, the city has basically had pretty consistent residential and commercial tax rates going back to, 2010. There've been about 10.59 mill rates for residents and about 25 mill rates for commercial. If you kept those mill rates, which, like I say, have been consistent going back to, 2015, something like that. If you kept those consistent, you would lose a lot of money. So yes, you can compensate by raising taxes, but that's compensating by raising taxes.
And I know what has been brought up is not to collect the 2.5%. Have we modeled over time what that would look like?
I have not. I'm very interested in doing that, but I have not.
And what other city has done? I know Greg, you mentioned one other city. There was a report. Do you know what city it was that did not collect the amount?
So a number of towns have not collected Prop 2.5 over the course of the 42-year.
Any examples?
I mean, there's a very good report that shows how gateway cities are much different than Boston. Was produced by the Worcester Regional Research Bureau at the beginning of the summer, and it compares it. It takes the data it uses the data from our report and then compares it to Worcester, Lowell, and either New Bedford or Fall River. And so it looks at how they do that. And among those cities, like Lowell has not raised the levy in the past. But again, like one of the things that report shows is that Boston's property tax mix is extremely unusual in Boston, right? Outside of Boston and Cambridge, very little money is collected from commercial property owners. Most property taxes in most cities and towns in Massachusetts is collected from residential owners. So you have you have a substantially different situation, right? Like in Boston and Cambridge, they're some of the only cities in Massachusetts where most of the property taxes are being paid by people who do not vote in the city.
Right. And I guess my last question for Randy is, with a triple net lease, when the property owner is experiencing less money in their tax bill, does that get passed on to the tenant?
Probably not.
Okay.
But I think that, like I said, I think it's at different times. It's hard to say that in the past. I think that because of COVID, so many property owners lost over the last 3 years. So hasn't the local retailer and the ground floor uses. So they're trying to make up that deficit over the last 3 years with COVID. So, but I would probably say probably not. But I don't own my real estate. So I can't think personally, but I've never seen them pass it back.
All right. And we've just been joined by Councilor Fernandez-Anderson. Councilor Fernandez-Anderson, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. I apologize for the delay in coming in late, and I wanted to just give myself a chance to catch up with the video before making any statements. May I ask, where are you in the process? Is this round two, round one?
This is the final round. So you're the last counselor to have any questions.
Well, then I am forced to be courteous. I will have to review the tapes because I'm quite sure that my questions either have been answered or not, or if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, I'll provide them to you via email through the liaison to get my questions answered. Out of the interest of not being repetitive of any questions that have already been answered.
Okay. You know what I'll do, Councilor Fernandez-Anderson? I'll check in with my council colleagues, and if they want to raise their virtual hand, if they have any additional questions for this panel, just to grant you a little bit more time. Okay. So if any of my colleagues have any other questions for this panel, please raise your virtual hand. I do not see any hands being raised, Councilor Fernandez-Anderson. So yeah, please submit your questions, and we'll get it over to the panelists.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Just want to thank panel one for their time here and for their work on this subject. And now we'll move over to panel two. Panel two is the administration. It is CFO Grothenberger for the City of Boston, Commissioner Arenello from the Commission of Assessing for the City of Boston, and Budget Director Williamson for the City of Boston. I don't know if you guys have a presentation, but we'll start with the CFO, followed by Commissioner Arenello, followed by Budget Director Williamson. The floor is now yours.
Great. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us back here. I'm Ashley Grafenberger, Chief Financial Officer for the city. As you said, I'm joined by Commissioner Nick Arenello, and then I believe Jim Williamson, the Budget Director, will be joining us shortly. We'll do a quick couple of slides. I know we've been at this for a while, so we'll want to get right to your questions, but I'm happy to go through a couple of slides that we have prepared. And want to just start off really by thanking you all for your support on this home rule petition to date. We have been in front of you many times talking about this issue, and so we're grateful to be back to talk about it. And thanks for the work and help in passing this home rule petition back in June and sending it up to the state where it passed the House at the end of July, and we're still at it. So thank you. And just, I know we're waiting for Jim to join, but I just figured I would start off by saying between the three of us here on this panel, we have about 65 years of municipal and state finance experience between the three of us. And so it is always great and welcome to have new voices in the discussion from folks at the BPI and Tufts. But I just want you all to know that you are well served by the 215 members of the Finance Cabinet and others in the city who have helped ensure strong fiscal management in the city, a AAA bond rating for the last decade, and record fund balance here in the city. So just want to give some kudos to the professionals in the finance department and all of the work they do to help do the budget and everything else that the Finance Cabinet does. So do I share screen? Is that central staff? Is that okay? Chair, Mr. Chair?
Does Ethan have your presentation, or?
I can share if that's okay.
Okay.
You can share the slides if that's fine. Thank you.
Perfect.
Is that okay? Okay, great.
Yes.
Thanks. Let's see. Okay, so there's been a lot of discussion today about so many topics, and so I'm hopeful we can hit on some of those in this quick presentation, and then really, again, looking forward to getting to your questions. So, Mr. Chair and others, I know you are so well versed in everything related to the budget, so this is just a quick refresher, and for those who don't know as much about the city operating budget. So the fiscal 25 operating budget that was just passed this summer is $4.64 billion. This is just a quick breakdown of how that is divided. Overwhelmingly, our budget is made up of public education and public safety. We have a series of fixed costs that we include in the budget every year for things like our pension payments and our debt service. That's about 21% of our budget. And I think it has also been said across all of the categories and all of the slices you see here on this chart, the cost of city employees and the salary and benefits associated with city workers is a driving force underneath all of these, representing well over half of the city's expenditures. The city department slice, which is everything that isn't public education or public safety, is just under 15%. So a lot is represented in that slice, but some of the departments represented in there are quite small. I know we talked about community engagement earlier. I think that is close to $5 million. So pretty small considering kind of the other large cost drivers that are included here in this budget. From a revenue perspective, I don't need to remind you all, because we've talked about it extensively, that property tax is our driving and most significant source of revenue, 71% in this in the current budget that we're in. And like has been said, this is not unique to Boston. The tax laws and laws that exist in Massachusetts really limit the ability of cities and towns to levy any new taxes, raise any new revenue. So we are constrained in the sources that we have available to us. I want to also note, so in this budget we're currently in, state revenue is about 11% of our total revenue picture. This has gone down significantly over the last 20 years. So it was approximately a quarter of the city's revenue and is now much, much smaller, about 11%. And I think it's important to also just talk about the comparison to 04 and 20 years ago when the city used this similar tax tool, kind of what was happening at the time. So in fiscal 02, state revenue totaled $523 million. And in FY04, the year that the city sought this tool, state aid was $460 million. So there was a significant loss of state revenue, which caused the city to need to react. The city had to do spending controls to manage that loss of revenue, and that's why you saw the city's budget grow by less than a percentage point from FY03 to FY04. But it was not related to the tax proposal. The city did not implement spending controls because they had sought this legislative relief. There were other things happening at the time, and mostly driven by a loss of state aid. So I think it's very important to clarify that for folks because there are slightly different economic circumstances than the city was facing 20 years ago. And another point to clarify, I think it was Mr. Maynard mentioned that the City Council has a role in setting the property tax rates that are part of the budget. I just want to make it clear that when you all are setting rates at the end of this year and approving the tax shift and the residential exemption, that you are impacting the revenue that is in the budget that you all just passed. So it's not for a future budget. It is to really solidify and affirm and collect the revenue that built under was the foundation of the budget that you all passed and that we're currently in. And then further, just a point about our process here. Here are the points about the state having a different process. We have a different revenue mix, right? The state has sales tax, it has income tax, right? There's much more economic volatility built into those. So when the state's doing consensus revenue in December, it's really relying on sort of the input of economists and others to predict and help the state decide how much revenue the three branches should base their collective budgets on so that we're not having wildly different versions of the budget and that we're all starting from a place of consensus. In Boston, our biggest revenue source is formula driven. And so there can be a discussion about should the city collect the full levy or not, but it's not really an issue of how much is available. So I just wanted to make that distinction between our process and the state process. And finally, just on the budget, many of you have seen this, so I'll go quick. Our budget is balanced. It has to be. The spending in our budget for this year is balanced and backed by revenue. There is no question about it. Some of that growth, about half of it, is coming from property tax, but it's not all from property tax. We have other sources of revenue that we have included in this budget to support the spending. So I want to make that crystal clear that is we have a balanced budget and it is not all based on property tax growth. Okay, so just a little bit of historical context here for folks. So we kind of went back to look at the share of the property tax levy over time. And the point really, I'll cut to the chase on this slide, is that over time, when Prop 2.5 and classification first came into being, the city was really at a 70-30 split between commercial and residential taxes. That has narrowed, it's moved a bit over time, but it's really starting to narrow, as you can see. So we're at the tail end of this chart. And right now, the split is really about 60-40. Given many of the dynamics that we've been talking about with the change in office value and the impact of vacancy and the other macroeconomic factors that are bringing us to this hearing today, we will continue to see this narrow. There's no doubt about it, right? We acknowledge that. But what we're here talking about and the reason why we brought this home rule to you all initially and you all supported it is because we want to make that happen as slowly as possible so that our residents are not absorbing an enormous shock all at once. There's been a discussion about rates, so I'll quickly go through this. Tax rates over time have bounced around, but in general, particularly on the commercial side, they're sort of at record lows. I think The tax rate in 1995 was just over $42, and now in this current fiscal year, it is, I believe, $25.27. So we have seen that tax rate come down significantly over time. This chart was shown to you all previously, so this really is meant to demonstrate the impact of the tool that we have been seeking and the tool that we have included in our home rule petition. We have been talking about different versions of this scenario over time, but as some have noted, we have since, as we've gone through our regular assessing process, have come up with more refined models of what's happening out in the world. So I think when we talked to you about this initially, we were sort of modeling a 5% increase in residential value and a 10% decrease in commercial value. It's still, that divergence is happening, but it's just not as extreme. So our current citywide modeling suggests that commercial values are going down 7%, whereas residential values are going up 4%. And so what that means and how that flows here through the models is, without the legislation, our residents could potentially see a quarter-to-quarter increase of about 28% in their tax bills. That's very significant, and we, through this tool, are seeking to smooth that out. So here you can see, with the legislation, you moderate that increase much more significantly to something like a 10% increase quarter to quarter. And for a commercial property, particularly a commercial property that's losing value, without the legislation, those taxes are going down about $8,400 year over year. And with the legislation, still going down, but just not as extreme. And again, it's all about creating that stability so that we are not seeing significant divergence in the share of the levy. And this just models what that looks like. So on the left-hand side, you can see the share of the property tax levy without the legislation for both commercial and residential taxpayers. So you can see that really sharp decrease and that sharp increase. And then on the right side, you see a much more stable line. And that is exactly what we are seeking to accomplish. And the very precise tool that we are seeking allows us to achieve this smooth balance without any of the destabilizing impacts of some of the other alternatives that have been presented. As has been noted, we've had many conversations with different groups of stakeholders, electeds, community groups, et cetera, et cetera. We have incorporated some of their feedback into the compromise that was passed by the House of Representatives back in July. So our initial proposal was a 5-year time period. We have shrunk that down to 3. We have further shrunk the cap that we are seeking from 200% to a max of 190%. We have agreed to set aside up to $45 million, $15 million per year in years that we use the tax shift and go above 175 to provide some further protections against small business and anyone impacted, any small businesses particularly impacted by this. And as I think was also mentioned previously, we have sought to triple the personal property tax exemption from its current level of $10,000 to $30,000. And that's really important because not all businesses are property owners, right? And so this tool is very specific to real estate and property owners, but we know the businesses that occupy them don't often own the space. And so this, whether you own property, real estate or not, you most likely are paying personal property taxes on your business equipment. And so by increasing the personal property tax exemption from its current level up to $30,000, we can ensure that more businesses are getting direct relief than they, than we could, potentially target through this very narrow real estate mechanism. And just a word on some of the alternatives. So I think it was great. Mr. Horowitz very clearly mentioned, and I think it's important to emphasize, that cutting the budget does not impact this, right? It is not the formula that drives property taxes is agnostic of the level of city spending. It is entirely based on your assessed value and value. So if we were to cut the budget and still collect our full levy, there would be no impact to the numbers that we have presented. If we were to achieve this through reducing our overall property tax levy, we would need to forego approximately $265 million of our property tax in order to achieve the same numbers that were on the table I showed you a few slides back. That has real ongoing impacts for the city. If we were to forego $265 million this year, as was said, we could go back and get that at some point, but then you're essentially double taxing people. And you know, we have a system right now that is very stable, that has earned us a AAA bond rating for the last 10 years, and really just funds critical city services. So we don't see that as a viable alternative. Further, emptying reserves at a time of economic strength is also not a viable alternative here for us, particularly if you're backfilling some of the foregone revenue so that you can sustain those city services. You know, we would be very quickly emptying a very small amount of spendable reserves that we have available. Just as a reminder for folks, the city has about $500 million worth of spendable reserves. And so if we had to replicate a $265 million backfill for 2 years, we would quickly exhaust those and we would have nothing left in the event of an actual downturn. And lastly, I know, back to Councilor Fitzgerald's question about what are we actually here to talk about today. We have done some cursory legal research on just the topic of providing rebates. From what we can tell, and again, there's no real specific proposal to react to, and so it's a little hard to say without, you know, with lack of specifics. But from what we can tell, rebates to special groups would potentially violate state law and potentially create a constitutional issue for us. So again, not something that we think is viable, at least in this moment, which is why we have proposed and continue to push for the tool that we have put forward. So I think I'll cut it there. Maybe just a quick reminder here on timeline. So we have been through this process with you since early April, so thank you for, again, all of the support. Where we are at now in the process is at the end of this month, we will have preliminary assessed values available for residents to preview online. So that will be shortly available. In late November, the mayor and the city council finalizes tax rates finalizes the residential exemption and the tax shift percentage. And then at the end of December, we are mailing the third quarter bills, which will include the impact of increased updated assessed values in people's tax bills. So again, thank you so much for having us. Very happy to answer any questions that you all have about our proposal or the proposals that we're here to talk about today.
Thank you, CFO. I'll turn it over to the original co-sponsor, Councilor Flynn. The floor is now yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Nick, and to Jim as well. I see Jim. Thank you for joining us. Ashley, I listened closely to your comments and the mayor's plan, and I listened to other recommendations from other people as well. Is there room for compromise from the mayor's team on some of the other proposals that were discussed? Is there an opportunity for us to work together so we are able to include some recommendations into the mayor's plan, or is it there's just no room for compromise?
Thanks for the question, Councilor. So as on one of my slides, we talked through some of the compromises we have included based on feedback from others. So shrinking the time horizon, shrinking the cap, including support for small businesses, and supporting an increase in personal property tax exemption. So those were all compromises that we included as a result of the feedback we have been receiving. I think some of the other proposals that have been put forward are not viable in this moment. And so I think, again, certain proposals like cutting the budget, even if it's just 1%, because of how the property tax formula works, you don't get very far. And if you were to forego 1% of the property tax levy, again, you're saving pennies on the tax rate. And so it's not achieving the same impact as the underlying proposal includes. So we included alternatives and compromises where it made sense, and sort of are trying to explain why some of the alternatives are, perfectly fine things to discuss, and we can talk about them in other contexts, but aren't getting at the underlying problem that we're trying to solve.
Thank you, Ashley. I know we had a proposal at the City Council recently. I believe it was $100 million on housing, investing in housing. But is that critical that we spend that $100 million in housing, or is there an opportunity to use that money to be more fiscally responsible? Or is it balanced?
Yeah, so I think the proposal that's been put forward about using $100 million of one-time funds to spur housing is trying to get at just this issue. And I think, as has been discussed, there's really no one solution, and this proposal is not intended to solve for the what's happening in downtown, right? We have many other proposals that the administration and the city have put forward to try and get at and make sure that the city is continuing to be a thriving place, and this is one of those solutions, right? We know we have a housing crisis here in Boston, regionally, statewide, and so this is an option to continue to bring people into Boston, make Boston affordable for folks. I think our worry about using our reserves in a different way is it creates that fiscal cliff, right? If we are spending money, a one-time source on something that's an ongoing cost, there's a mismatch in that next year. And so we really see this as a smart one-time investment that can spur good economic benefits going forward.
That $100 million, so that $100 million would have to stay for housing plans, housing initiatives. We couldn't use any of that funds, are you saying, for any type of support for taxpayers?
So aside from kind of the how, sure, you could use money for different purposes. I think our issue there in sort of utilizing reserves for taxpayers in this rebate concept is the how. Our legal research shows that there are real challenges doing it that way. And so as a result, not the first or best option for us to pursue as we're sort of getting down to the wire here. But we think smart investments in housing, again, could create larger economic benefits for folks that will last more long-term, as opposed to a sort of one-time rebate that someone might expect get one time, and then they, how do they adjust their tax bill in the next year when that rebate isn't available to them?
Thank you, Ashley. One of the reasons I do focus on this housing is I am concerned that we are giving first-time home buyers sometimes $75,000 for a down payment grant. I do think that is excessive. I think it is high, and it's not something I support, especially when the person has the ability to turn around and resell the home. But do we have an obligation to help everybody that wants housing with taxpayer money?
So I'm maybe not best positioned to speak on that particular policy issue, but I know the $100 million that we have put forward is sort of a targeted investment to just spur the creation of housing. I know we haven't really brought that in front of you all for, we've had a preliminary conversation and preliminary hearing, but I know there will be further conversations with you all about how that $100 million will be deployed. So, looking forward to that.
Yeah, and Ashley, it's the program is actually described as free cash. And I was troubled with that wording, free cash. There's no such thing as free cash, as we all know. That's taxpayer money. And when we're in a debate about raising taxes on the businesses and or raising taxes on residents, having a program identified as $100 million as free cash, I do think it sets the wrong example to residents that we're really not serious about our fiscal responsibility. I'm not criticizing anybody. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, and it's a kind of a funny term that we get from the state. It is a term that is well written about in the Division of Local Services. That's part of DOR. So it is sort of a funny name to call it free cash. I wish it was called something different, but that is the name that we have from the state. So, but point well taken.
My final question, Ashley, Randy from the South End mentioned 500 new kind of senior level people were added to the payrolls. Can you talk about that for us, please?
Sure. So I don't know about senior level, but what we can tell you is that I can't remember over what period of time. Jim can jump in, but we saw growth in Boston Public Schools. That's one of the bigger areas of FTE growth in the city. Can't speak to at this moment exactly what those positions were, but I don't think I would describe all 450 of them as senior level positions.
A lot of them were at the BPS department. We spend the most of any school district in the country on public education per student, I believe. That is obviously having a major impact on the city budget as well. Is that accurate, Ashley?
The pie chart I showed you, it shows that BPS and public education are definitely one of our largest expenditure categories for sure. About nearly 39% in the FY25 budget. So it's a significant cost driver for sure, but an important one.
We spend more than any city in the country per student with limited results. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Again, and hold on, Council. I guess I would like to see, the number of 450 or 500 new positions were hired. I don't know, CFO Rothenberger or Director Williamson, do you have like a breakdown of what made up those positions? Like, was it BPS? Like, what departments? Was it BPS? Was it BTD? Was it what departments?
Chair, we certainly can give you that. It's actually going to be a recompilation of what you see in the budget document every year. We have a table of FTEs. These aren't positions per se. These are full-time equivalent general fund positions. And we can do it. As Ashley had mentioned, it's largely BPS, and it is directly related to the way we deliver educational services here at the city. We want more adults working with our students in the type of students we have. So,
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. More guidance counselors, more student support. Musicians, librarians. We want our students to have the best of the best and all the resources they need in order to excel. And I do applaud the administration on reducing barriers to home ownership, and those are transformative investments to a lot of people who have been priced out of the market. So those type of investments help stabilize communities, and I applaud the administration on all their efforts. Councilor Mejia, the floor is now yours.
Yes, sir. Okay. So thank you. I'm always trying to figure out how we get to a good place, right? And just for the record, I signed on to this hearing order because I'm really intrigued by viable alternatives. I'm not digging my heels on what is the best way to move forward. I just want to have a dialogue to make sure that however we get there, we all are in at least an understanding. We may not be all in agreement, because this political climate, it's already toxic enough that we don't need to continue to add fuel to that raging fire, right? So I just want to be really clear for those who are tuning in, Ashley in particular, and Jim, that I'm really happy to see you all here and excited to also hear from Nick. So let's just go in there with that mindset, okay, guys? So, all that introduction said, I do have some questions. So at last year's rate setting meeting, I believe it was December the 5th in 2023. Assessing Chief Nick, you said that the indications that are quote unquote wait, what did you say? The indications are that there isn't going to be a major shift from commercial value to residential value in terms of the rates. And so they're looking relatively stable right now. Now we have these numbers that show a really, major shift from commercial to residential, a 14% increase in residential property taxes. So my understanding is that most of what happened, to produce these numbers that we're looking at today happened in 2023. So can we talk about what you and the rest of the budget team missed in 2023? I'm just trying to understand, I'm always trying to figure out how we got here, y'all. So if you can break that down, I'd appreciate that. I also would like to hear, in response to the Boston Policies Institute report, the fiscal fallout of Boston's empty offices in February. Again, our Commissioner of Assessing released a statement that included the line, quote unquote, "We don't feel that the current real estate environment is going to lead to budgetary concerns." The mayor held a town hall meeting last night where she said that the alternative to her tax shift proposal was mid-year cuts and thousands of people being laid off. That sounds like a budgetary concern to me. And I guess the question is, for anyone here on the budget staff, why did the city budget staff believe that there was no cause for concern then? Again, going back to how we ended up here. And then my last question, I have two more questions. The mayor and the CFO announced her tax shift proposal in late March and sent it over to the council in early April. Can you walk us through when the idea of using the Mayor Menino's tax shift proposal was first discussed? Was it before or after Commissioner said that we wouldn't have a major shift from commercial to residential on December the 5th? I'm just trying to understand the timeline here. Was it before or after Mr. Iannello released the statement on February the 15th, claiming he didn't think the current real estate environment was going to lead to budgetary concerns? Again, I'm just really trying to help my audience understand the process here. In Mayor Wu's letter to us back in Tuesday, she said that cutting $265 million from the budget would mean that 2,231 city workers would be laid off. And to me, that is a very specific number. Can anyone here tell me about what departments those are for 2,231 people currently working in the city? What jobs do they hold? And what other details about how the administration reached such a specific number? Like, I am so amazed that we got there, but I'd like to know your math, because the math seems like it might be mathing or not. And then lastly, in the administration's town hall meeting last night, Mayor Wu and the chief seemed to say that they thought this 7% decline in commercial property value was a one-time thing, but we heard from the Boston Policy Institute folks that they think this will continue to happen in coming years. Can anyone, please anyone, clarify whether they think this decline is a one-time event, or is this something that that Boston is going to have to face again in 2025 and years to come? So if you can just provide any clarity on those 5 points, I would really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the question, Counselor. I'm happy to jump in and at least talk to the 2 points where you appear to be directly quoting me, although to be fair, trying to remember the exact circumstances around last December and last February are a little tricky to respond to 8 and 10 months later. But in December of 2023, I was talking about tax rates for fiscal year 2024. So when we're talking about dramatic increases in tax rates, we were talking about the tax rate that in 2023 was $10.74 for residents. That went to $10.90 for residents. And then the commercial rate went from $24.68 for commercial property to $25.27 for commercial property. I hold that those are not dramatic changes, and I don't think that my department missed anything. And I appreciate your initial statement that you are not trying to create a situation where we're pitting one side against each other. But at the same point, saying that my department did something wrong out of the blue, I find a little bit troubling. So
before we move on from there, I just want to be clear is that what we're trying to do here is understand how we ended up here. So if you share some information with us in December and February, and it's not lining up now that we're in the situation, I think this is a hearing for us to get clear on what happened. So if you're taking it from an adversarial point of view, my apologies, that's not my posture. I'm just really trying to help understand, because people don't trust government, they don't trust us, and I want to make sure that whatever we say, we get things on the record so we're clear, so that anybody understands how we got here. So I'm sorry if you are interpreting it with that tone. That's not my delivery. I just happen to be very passionate. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that correction. I think that part of the problem with mistrust is sometimes that the language that's used in saying that we got something wrong and that we aren't being consistent adds to that misinformation and that mistrust. So the time period that I was talking about last December was prior year values and prior year activity. I wasn't talking about what was going to happen going forward. And in February, when I was talking about the state of the budget and revenue, I was talking about how our tax system works and how our levy works. And we continue to maintain that we are not in the middle of a budget crisis. The whole budget crisis concept and the revenue crisis concept comes from people that fundamentally don't understand how our tax system works. That report that came out that we heard about again today talks about a system where residential rates and commercial rates stay the same. That was an underlying fundamental requirement for all of their math. That is impossible under our state system. So their report presented this lovely hypothetical situation using a completely different tax system that we don't presently have, and then made a bunch of conclusions and assumptions on it. And they still honestly don't even admit that that's what they're talking about. They still talk today about all of our numbers are based on the residential tax rate and the commercial tax rate staying the same. The residential tax rate and the commercial tax rate are tied to the shift that we elect to do every year, which we don't have to do because the default is a flat tax rate, and that's a city council and administration process that we go through every single year, but it's not a guarantee. But it's also tied to the relative value of property in the city. And those things don't stay constant. And so they created a budget crisis out of whole cloth that was a fiction. And that's also why the budget that we've passed, that is a balanced budget that the city council had an active role in, that was talked about through many hearings, an extremely long process, going through what the appropriate things to spend on were. And we all came to consensus. And so now to all of a sudden go back and pretend that none of that happened, I find that that's contributing to disinformation about this entire conversation.
And I so appreciate you breaking it down the way that you have. This reminds me of the charter versus district debacle. As a parent who had to navigate that space, it's always these two very opposing views, and everyone is spitting out data, numbers, and the people who are the ones who are going to suffer are those folks who are low income, uninformed, uneducated, because what happens in this world is that everybody uses these spaces, and it's really sad that we are even here right now in this moment, and that this is what is unfolding. But I'd love to hear some of my other questions being answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. So the one question I don't think we've talked about is your question about the number of FTEs and the concept of layoffs. So to be clear, there's no proposal for layoffs. We absolutely reject the need to do them. We don't need to do them. We don't want to do them. The math is simply taking the average salary and benefits for a city employee and dividing it by kind of the value of this problem, which is about 265 million. So if we wanted to achieve the same impact as our tool does, we would have, without using our tool, we would have to forego $265 million of property tax. If we didn't have $265 million of property tax, that's equivalent to, I forget what the exact number is, 2,213 or something FTEs in the city. So it's just about creating a sense of magnitude and scale here, and kind of what the impact of a number like that would be. But to be clear, there's no plan, proposal, any desire to do anything like that. It's just about illustrating the value.
Yeah, and could I just say that this line of questioning brought some things to light, right? So, and while you may have experienced it as hostile, it really gave you an opportunity and a platform to set the record straight. Yes or no? I believe so, right? I think that, again, it's all in how we choose to experience it. This provided the administration a platform to set the record straight. The last thing that I would say, and just for the record, because this is my 4th or 5th budget cycle, is that we have found, well, at least I'll speak for myself, I have found myself time and time again, right? Always playing on the defense side of things in terms of like what investments we want to make. It never feels collaborative. It always feels like, even with the ARPA funding, we had a hearing to talk about how you all spent money. And then we were told that there was going to be a second hearing so we can talk about other things, but we didn't even have the second hearing. The second hearing was just like sealing the deal of what had already been agreed upon. So I just think that we have to fix the process here, guys. I really want us to understand that if we really want to show a united front, we should start having these conversations more openly, more frequently. It shouldn't just be during budget cycle time. It shouldn't just be in times of adversary like right now. We want what's best for our constituents. We serve the same constituents that the administration serves, right? And we have a responsibility and an opportunity to seize this moment to get things right. No one has all the answers. No one's trying to be a know-it-all. Well, at least I know I'm not. I don't ever want to be a know-it-all. I want to be constantly learning. Why is one of the reasons why I keep showing up to these hearings, because I always learn something new. But we have to come to terms with the fact that something has to give, and it can't be one way or the highway. And I think, you know, I just think that let's just figure this out and come to some sort of agreement that feels like everyone's lost and everyone's gonna win. Like, maybe I'm being naive, but I think that we can get somewhere that feels good for everybody, and that's what my hope is. Thank you, Councilor Burrell. I appreciate the extra time.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Mejia. And I know some councilors are calling for, a hiring freeze, but then again, calling for, the hiring of 500, police officers. What would be the math on hiring? Like, what would be the cost to the city if you were to hire 500 police officers? And, I guess, can you help me understand, like, is a hiring freeze, like, are you still able to hire more police officers in other departments? Can you talk to me, like, what a hiring freeze looks like to the administration?
Sure, we can kind of talk about it conceptually. I mean, we are not in one, nor do we think that we need to be in one, but usually they're done in response to a revenue shortfall. So the city, I think, has implemented hiring freeze previously, maybe in fiscal 09, in response to 9C cuts that came down from the state in reaction to the Great Recession. And so it really just depends on what revenue shortfall you're trying to solve. I think in the letter that the mayor sent over, we proposed as a part of, or, noted that a part of a solution could be to hire, to freeze hiring in a couple of large city departments like ISD, BCYF, and BTD. Doesn't get you all the way there, but it contributes. And then also, a big chunk of a solution to get to a $46 million reduction could be to cancel your police, fire, and EMS classes. So it really just depends on what problem you're trying to solve. There's no standard blueprint for how you do a hiring freeze. You could choose, to target certain departments, but it just depends on the order of magnitude. And I'll let Jim jump in too, because he's probably been here when we've done this in the past.
Sure. We also did it when, in the period during the COVID crisis, we did, and we typically it's not a exclusion, 100% hiring freeze. It tends to be what we call controlled hiring, because there are certain key critical positions that need to be backfilled. So, but but we did it until the revenue replacement came in as part of the American Rescue Plan. The economically sensitive revenues came back a bit. We paused some hiring during that period, but during FY21. But and there was, with closures of we had people staying at home, so there, with community centers being offline and libraries being limited in use, there was not that critical need to fill those vacancies. So we were in a bit of a hole to backfill those roles because there was not that sense of urgency to fill them at the time. But it takes time to fill those vacancies again.
Thank you. Councilor Fitzgerald, the floor is yours.
Thank you all, Chief Grafenberger, Jim, and Nick for being here today. I guess I could sort of ask the same question I asked the original panel. I know, Chief Grafenberger, you kind of spoke to it a bit already, but in terms of this like idea of giving people less residential tax now, but they will still have to make up over time, you will reach that amount. And the potential cause to the commercial district, we don't, irreparable or not, but potentially, like, I guess that balance, I mean, this is a tough, it's a tough issue, right? Because you just don't know which one is going to hurt the city more in the long run. But either way, someone does have to get hurt in the meantime, right? And of course, we want to protect our residents, but there is a long-term cost to this, I feel, on the commercial side. Chief Grafenberger, I can imagine how many times you've given this spiel in the past month or 2 months, that you could probably do it in your sleep. So God bless you for doing that. I'll maintain that. You don't really have to speak to it. I don't really expect an answer there. I just know it's difficult, and we're just sort of on opposite sides of who we think should get hurt and what the potential outcome would be in terms of the damage inflicted in the long run, right? I don't know if anyone.
Yeah, if I could just chime in on that, right? Hear your point about, and I said this myself, you know, we're heading that chart that shows how the property tax is allocated, you know, between residential commercial over time. It's narrowing, like we're heading to another narrowing point. It's just a matter of, do you want that narrowing to happen 1 year or 3 years? And I know that's what you're talking about, but I think, you know, the same is true on the commercial side, right? Like over time, like they are going to be bearing less of the property tax burden, right? So it's really just about slowing this thing down so that we get to that ultimate endpoint a little bit in a way that isn't so dramatic for everyone. So it's really just about achieving stability over a slightly longer period of time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Is there a way that this, like, could we have done this more gradually? Monday morning quarterbacking this, right? Completely. But is there a way, if like in prior years, if we had phased in these like increments more slowly, that it would not have to be this potential jump of the 700 monthly? Like, I was looking at like the city of Chelsea and how and I don't know if you've looked at them as like a peer review, but sort of how they've, I think they were going up, but only to 175%, right? And I think that they use the maximum residential exemption of 35%. And it's just sort of like, wow, that seems to be, and I know I don't know if this is apples to apples is what I'm guessing, but and looking at them, it's like, wow, that 175 is not 190. And the max residential exemption is given on the residential side. I don't believe Boston does the maximum amount residential yet, right?
We do. We
do.
do.
We do. All right.
We have historically, and Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but historically go to the 175 and max on the residential exemption. And we've done that, as far as I know, for reasons of ensuring that we make Boston taxes as affordable for residents as possible. So we've done that. We have a history of doing that, and precisely why we're seeking this tool, right? Because we're maxed out. So we've hit that max, and even at that max and the most affordable levels, we're still seeing these dramatic spikes. So precisely why we've sought to go above that 175 and then gradually come back down over originally a period of 5 years, now over a period of 3.
Gotcha.
The other thing I would add to that, if I may, very quickly, excuse me, Councilor.
No.
The city has historically been a leader in this front. We have been a leader in the creation of the residential exemption. We have historically gotten additional amounts that other municipalities did not have, and then they were like, "Hey, that's a good idea. We want to copy that." We've been a very strong advocate for rate shifts, and like, honestly, the reason that other municipalities don't do it is that they're scared to have these conversations. They're scared to have that back and forth, and they don't want to have that kind of difficult conversation about like, how do you create balance for everyone? And so a lot of times we do something and we implement it, and then other people are like, "Hey, look, that worked in Boston. Can we do it now?" And everyone's like, "Sure, that sounds like a great idea." That's what happened last time we did this increased shift in 2004.
Can I ask about if we're at the max residential, part of the compromise, I believe, that I saw was tripling the residential exemption?
Personal property tax exemption. So that's a different class of tax, different class of property, not the residential exemption.
So what does personal property include then, if that was?
Personal property is like your kitchen at a restaurant, or your computers and things at your business. So regardless of whether you own the space that you occupy, Nick knows this much better than I do, but for the sake of simplicity, if you own property as a business, you are taxed on that property. And so right now there's an exemption, 10,000. We have sought to triple that up to 30,000. And so in doing so, I think we would effectively exempt about half the businesses in Boston from personal property tax liability. And again, that is regardless of whether or not you own property. So that is a way in which we can very directly target businesses and help them regardless of what their real estate situation is.
Great, thank you. That's all for my questions. I would think at some point I'd love to maybe offline do a deeper dive between what Chelsea did and what we're doing, and if it is apples to apples or not, because it seems to be they found like a good balance, and this was just from last year's their tax revenue of trying to, it seems like it was fair to commercial, but also helping residential at the same time. And I don't know if they're ripping us off or if there's anything that we can rip off from them. But we can, I'll find out more about that offline. But thank you very much, Chair. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Fitzgerald. Councilor Braden, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been jumping in and out because I've had other meetings in the interim. So I really don't have any questions right now. I think I'm a little distracted because I've been bouncing around too much. So I will, if I have a question, I'll come back. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Braden. Councilor President Louis-Jean, the floor is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Like Councilor Braden, I've been in and out of different meetings today here at the hall, but very grateful to everyone for being here. I just want to ask a question. I heard earlier someone was comparing this tax shift to the one in 2004, and it was stated that back then tax property accounted for, property taxes accounted for 52% of the city's overall revenue. I'm wondering if that's correct. And if that is so, what has happened in the interim years to cause property taxes to be a greater share of the city's revenue and henceforth the city's budget?
Thank you for the question. I'm sure I have that somewhere, the answer to your question about whether or not it was 52%, but that's probably right. Jim, does that sound right to you? Yeah, seeing nods.
Yeah. I know the point from the panel was like in 2002 or something was in the 50% range too. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if you heard what I was saying earlier, Councilor, but state revenue.
I've been in and out, so I've caught some things, not others.
Sure.
So. Yeah.
Sure, no problem. So happy to repeat this point because I think it's important. State revenue at the time represented about a quarter of the city's revenue. And over time, that has come down significantly. So in terms of real dollars, we are below what we were getting in terms of state revenue over 20 years ago. So as that has shrunk, and as our property tax base has grown, property tax has, represented a greater overall percentage of our revenue. So I think those are the two key dynamics to know about the change over the last 20 years.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to thank all of you because I know that we, had hearings on this issue when it was brought before the council, and the council voted favorably in support of this legislation that is now pending before the State House. And there are some alternatives that folks are talking about, or things that we should be looking. But I also just want to just underscore, maybe others have underscored it already, the difficulty here is our limited home rule authority, and even in the exploration of additional revenue sources and streams, the requirement to get permission from the State House in order to do so for something like property taxes, which the transfer fee, which would generate $100 million a year to provide for affordable housing for the city, which would be an important constant revenue stream that may be able to take some of the pressure off other parts of our budget if we had that, but we don't. And getting things to the State House is not an easy feat. And therefore, even when we're proposing alternatives, I really do want us to be realistic in terms of like the likelihood of success or the ability to get those. I just wanted to have someone repeat the numbers again in terms of what the jump in property taxes would be should this legislation not go forward for residents.
Sure, happy to do that. So without the legislation, the example we shared is for a single family home. And so from Q2 to Q3, which is when you sort of feel the impact of updated values and the updated tax shift and all of that, the change from quarter to quarter would be approximately 28% without the legislation. With the legislation, and again, somewhat still preliminary numbers, but if you maximize the legislation to its full potential and within the bounds of the compromise that we've reached with the House, the quarter to quarter increase would be closer to 10% for a single family home.
Great, and you could give me the median or the average, whichever you have. What does that look like in real dollars for like the average a Boston homeowner?
Yeah, so in this particular example, so the Q2 tax bill for an average single family home is $1,380. Without the legislation, that goes up to Q3 goes up to $1,764. And with the legislation, the Q3 bill would be $1,516.
Okay, great. So again, this is just about blunting the severity of that increase on residents. And I just want to echo, I think some of my colleagues have made the comment about, asking for there to be a review of our budget, which I always think is important, but then also asking for additional employees, whether that be new positions, new offices, more officers. That is money. It's millions of dollars. And so I just think that I think that there should be open space for us to discuss ideas, but I do think that there needs to be like coherency in how people are arguing about the city's budget. We always have difficult trade-offs to make, and I want to thank Councilor Worrell as he's led Ways and Means, a difficult process as the city council tries to make sure that we are doing the oversight work that we have, while also using our power, to elevate the voice of community and of people to really have more of a say in the budget process. Opportunities where we were able to look at departments where there was historic underspending, but yet at the same time, people were protective of those departments that had historic underspending. And so I just think that there needs to be, I would like to see more of a consistent and a coherent policy framework when we're advocating for certain things, because it's the lack of consistency that confuses me. I am in support of this legislation because I think it's important to our residents. I also think that, there are limited ways that we can raise revenue, and this council is trying to think about some how can we be more creative and explore what we're able to do outside of the bounds of home rule authority. But I just wanted to point that out, is that this council has looked at and has explored historic underspending in certain departments and has tried our best to shine a light on that. And I just want to credit Councilor Worrell for doing that and for doing that so well. So want to thank you, Councilor Worrell, want to thank the entire admin for being here, and my colleagues for the questions that they've asked, and hope that, the residents of Boston are able to see what we've been advocating for. So thank you.
Thank you. And if it's okay, Mr. Chair, if I could just respond to one quick thing that you said, Councilor Lujan, or President Lujan. I think it's really important to note the limitations of our home rule authority, right? And just earlier this year, the governor proposed some modest increases to the existing excise taxes that we have available and that we collect, and as part of the Municipal Empowerment Act, and those didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, we are limited. The state's limited too. So I think it's just a really important thing to keep in mind as we're talking about revenue diversification and what other revenue sources we could reasonably consider. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief, and thank you, Chair, for this hearing, and again for all the work that you've done and really sort of parsing through with us as colleagues on the council the city's budget. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And just always, when the budget process gets brought up, I always have to give a big shout out to central staff and my staff for all their work that they put into the budget to, analyze and identify departments that had historic underspending. And that's a process that, we wanted to shine a light on. So I appreciate you acknowledging that work, but just want to acknowledge everyone who had a part in it.
Shout out to Karishma. Thank you, Karishma, and everyone, and Matt in your office, and so many other people. So
absolutely. Councilor Braden, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I might have collected myself. I've come back with the question. I think, in days gone by, we had a central sort of administrative structure in the city, for human resources and finance and administration, and all of it sort of in one central place. And I really do feel that sometimes I don't know if things get lost in the shuffle, or if we have a coherent sort of approach to hiring and firing and rationalizing departments, scrutinizing job positions that may be, with this new technology and all, that may be obsolete at this point. It's just a question, there's always the issue about getting revenue in, but then there's also the question of, in terms of efficiencies, of having a centralized research department, a centralized department to work on writing RFPs for the different offices across the enterprise. If we could centralize some of that, we'd be able to hopefully make it more efficient and maybe increase our effectiveness and save some money. I'm always sort of trying to think about how, as a bureaucracy, a big bureaucracy, we tend to go along with what we've always done. And sometimes we throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, I really feel that the issue about annual reports is critical. I think it really sharpens everybody's thinking about what we're doing and why we're doing it and what it's going to cost. And then are we doing things that we don't need to do? And in particular, in some big departments, like I've been spending a lot of thought on just thinking about the school department, the central office school department. It's a massive, huge piece of our budget, and just wondering, are we being as efficient and effective as possible, especially in the in spaces like the school department where there's so much concern about outcomes. Any thoughts?
Jim, do you want to talk about the work that your department does in collaboration with People Ops on hiring and all of that?
Sure. I think the coherence that the council has talked about making personnel decisions, there is that collaboration. When we get proposals for positions, we work collaboratively with our people ops cabinet. They have a unit called classification to compensation to bring coherence and structure, and they also have the ability to go out and look in the marketplace to see what comparable positions are paid in other comparable organizations. So that is, and believe me, we are very familiar with sometimes our job descriptions, given the tenure of employees, are outdated when someone retires, and we take every opportunity to take that position, say what is the resource associated with that position, and well within our labor relations environment, we take the situations to repurpose them for to get the most constructive, most efficient delivery of services.
Yeah. I think, in the context of the recession of 2008, 2010, that time, generally in the public sector and in the city, we never recovered our hiring in terms of positions that were lost at that time. And I think in some departments like BTD, they're really struggling to, they have an ambitious agenda, and we keep throwing them more work because, BPDA have given up. They're going either BTD are going to do that planning. So, thinking about just keeping the workers we have, not burning them out in short order, and then building career pathways so that folks would see themselves as coming to work in the city for a prolonged period of time. That this would be a career that it could be people don't think about working for the same organization for life anymore, but a significant contribution to the civic life of the city, and having rewarding, well-compensated jobs is sort of important as well. So anyway, I'm sort of preaching to the choir, I feel, so I'll leave it for now. Thank you.
Oh, the gym thing.
Councillor,
sorry about that. I tried to get.
Mr. Chair, thank you, and
Yep.
that's all I have.
Sorry about that. I try to find my mouse. I have like two screens going. And Council Braden, this is something that the CFO, Grothenberger, and Director Williamson, I talked about on just getting more information on expenditures and revenue to the council. And they, are more than willing to provide those reports, and that's something that we want to make sure that the council has in front of them. I think we're pushing for like a quarterly basis, and maybe even having some hearings scheduled. But as you know, our calendar does get filled up quick. But it is something that we have been talking about with the budget office and our CFO. Councillor Murphy, I'm not sure if you have any questions, this panel.
I do just have one. Thank you, Chair. Knowing that this year we increased the budget by 8%, are we expecting that will have to be something we'll continue to do going forward to sustain all of the initiatives and things we put forward this year in the budget?
Do you want me to take that, Ashley, or? Yeah. So
Sure.
Just, it's a little bit of a misnomer that the budget grew. There was the introduction of the planning in Office of Workforce Development that was primarily, it was matched with, paired with revenue. So that's a one-time event. So it will not grow at that rate going into next year.
And Councilor, I just think in general too, I mean, I don't think we can nor should expect 8% budget growth or 7% budget growth year over year, just because it grows, that much one time. It doesn't mean that it grows at that rate in perpetuity. We in this budget presented a balanced budget. We had some other revenue sources that were performing more strongly than they had in the past. So we reflected that growth. That growth will likely moderate. You see moderating revenue growth at the state level. And so we, will plan accordingly. But I think it's, because of what you're raising, it's really important that we continue to take our full property tax levy as the city has always done. It is not enough to keep up with the cost of the cost growth that we see. The cost of inflation has been much higher than the 2.5% over many, many years. And so taking that additional property tax increment is really critical so that we can just keep up with the cost of doing business, as well as, recognizing revenue growth in other areas where appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Murphy. Just a couple questions from me, and then we'll move on to the public testimony. Can you get are you guys able to forecast for the next few years, or speak to how much new commercial growth we can anticipate in the next 5 years?
Thank you so much for the, thank you so much for the question, Councilor Well. Unfortunately, we don't have the capability to project property values that far into the future. We are very much spending all of our resources and time right now working on finalizing this year's value and this year's growth.
All right. And I'm a big advocate of the new fund that is being proposed. I believe in it, but I haven't modeled this. But if we get more condos built, we're going to be spreading, that burden, that tax burden across a larger tax base. Has anyone modeled model that, right, to see how much new construction do we need to build in order to decrease the responsibility on the individual residential owner?
It's a really good question, Councilor. I think your question brings in a whole bunch of different variables that it actually ends up being like a little more complex than it honestly feels like it should be. One of the things is that it's kind of important to remember that in our current property tax system, we are limited that no matter what our costs are, we can't collect more than 2.5% in revenue, right? And new growth is this extra additional item. So the new growth doesn't kind of spread that property tax charge from those other properties out across more property. It is extra money on top of the 2.5% growth for the other properties. So it makes it so that it's easier for us to sustain a functional budget without having to go back to our constituents for like a tax override or something like that. But it doesn't lessen the tax burden on other properties because it comes in as additional revenue in the year that property comes online.
Got it, makes sense. But does over time, does it spread out over time, or
so
after the first year?
It does in a way. So over time, it's a larger than pot of money that grows at the same 2.5% rate. So it helps us kind of have a more sustainable budget over time and create balance. But really, the way it creates balance is by giving us an environment where we don't have to go back to the state legislature for new taxes. We don't have to go to our voters for an override. It's something where we're kind of, it helps us have a balanced system in general.
Right, that makes sense. Let me see, just checking my notes. And Jim, you often come before us with union contracts that call for raises, and most of them stay within and around that 2.5% per year. I've often assumed that the 2.5% is set in part because we know we can increase our levy by that same 2.5% every year. It's a growth that is that a growth that we plan for collective bargaining agreements by not levying more than 2.5 every year? Like, is there any relations to like, the levy that we increase by and the growth in our CBAs?
I don't know, Ashley, do you want to take this one or?
Yeah, I can try. I mean, so I think, right, it's really nice and helpful to know that we sort of have that ability to increase our revenue at least 2.5% every year. So it's definitely, I think, a consideration as we're negotiating collective bargaining contracts to try and, as much as possible, keep the growth in those contracts in line with what our revenues are going to do. As you know, we also collect other sources of revenue that grow at different rates. So it's definitely a consideration. It's not the only consideration, but it's something that we definitely think about as we're negotiating contracts.
Got it. And then if we were to diversify revenue, what would that do to our property tax? Like, would we, offload some of that burden onto, like, would we replace some of that new revenue and not collect it from property taxes? Like, what would we do with new revenue if we were to diversify?
Yeah, so it really depends on the goal of diversification. Those are what you described are two kind of separate goals. Are we looking to not collect our full property tax levies, or are we looking to, supplant property tax revenue with a new source? That's one thing. And again, I think it's challenging for all of the reasons we've been talking about this afternoon. Kind of the inability, you forego that forever. Effectively, and just the stability of property tax is really beneficial to the city. But if you're talking about net new revenue to the city and then growing the pie and making that percentage less, that's great. I mean, of course, like, additional revenue coming into the city and into the budget would be welcome, and we have explored it. The state has explored it. It's just a matter of getting it over the finish line, which can sometimes be challenging, but it really just depends what the goal is. There's no sort of one approach. If you diversify, you have to then supplant or supplement. It just really depends on the goal.
Right, and I'm sure this question also could go different ways, but like, what would be the implications if we were to diversify and we were not being solely reliant on property tax? I just think of like our AAA bond rating, right? Making sure that we protect that at all costs. So would that be in jeopardy if we were to not be so reliant on property tax?
Yeah, hard to say if it would be in jeopardy, but I can tell you for sure that the rating agencies cite the stability of our property tax and our, consistency in taking the levy as a source of stability and a credit positive to us. I will say, having come from a city that had a much more diverse revenue mix, you see a lot more volatility. And I think, as you, Chair Worrell, mentioned earlier, we were sort of unique in our ability to take ARPA revenue and spend it on transformative, really important new investments in the city to help us recover from COVID, where the city I came from had to take all of our COVID revenue and just use it to backfill revenue we lost because the pandemic, cratered those revenue sources. So, there's definitely pros and cons. I think we are limited in property tax, but it's stable and it's a credit positive and has served us well in many ways in the city.
Thank you. No further questions from me. I'll go back to my council colleagues by a show of virtual hands if you have any additional questions for the second panel. Council Flynn, is that a hand raised? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Ashley, going forward, are we always going to be looking at an 8% increase in the budget just to maintain and sustain programs and spending and supporting programs? Or are you looking to reduce that 8% to something more manageable, like 6%? I know a lot of other cities, according to the National League of Cities, their budget increase is usually around 5 to 6. but what are your thoughts on reducing it over the next several years from 8% down to 6%? Is that an option?
Yeah, so again, our budget is balanced and is based on the revenue we have available. So in this current budget, we had significant revenue growth. We took our property tax increment, but that wasn't all of it. We had growth in other areas. We recognized some strength in excise tax and interest income collections. So we were kind of responding to the resources we had available. Budgets jump around. Just because you have 8% budget growth one year does not mean you have 8% budget growth in perpetuity forever. We saw that at the state, right? I think the year that they had their kind of record surplus where they were giving money back to taxpayers, they had something like 9% budget growth, and the next year they had 3%. So things bounce around, and it's a reaction to what your revenue sources are doing at the time. And so I don't think we are going to. It'd be great if we saw 8% revenue growth year over year, but it's probably not likely. So I think you will see some of those sources start to moderate into more, normal levels, but it's a little too early to tell. But that's, kind of just our approach to budgeting.
Thank you, Ashley. Have we had any conversations with the Mass Convention Center Authority about considering working with them on potentially using some of their surcharges for the city budget, potentially providing tax relief for residents? I do remember Mayor Walsh proposed something similar to this, and it was for, I believe it was for education, early childhood education. But is this something we could possibly consider?
So thanks for the question. So we do currently get $1 of the $10 vehicle rental surcharge from the convention center. So that comes to us and it flows into the city's general fund. I think relatively small total of about 1.4 million in fiscal 24. And again, that goes into the city's general fund and supports, all of the programs and services the city provides. Have we had conversations with taking more of that? No, but doing so would require the state to give up a source of revenue that they're using to fund their budget, to fund the convention center, so on and so forth. So presumably would require a change, maybe in state law to increase the surcharge. So we haven't had a direct conversation with them about it, but it would certainly, I think, be challenging, maybe I would say, for the state to agree to that, but we can certainly ask.
Yeah, that's something I proposed, something to at least consider. Again, I don't have all the answers, but I'm here to work with people to compromise, to try to come up with solutions that work for residents and for businesses as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Councilor Mejia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Morrell. And again, I just want to thank the administration for showing up completely in your full selves here today, because that's what our people love to see. So thank you. I just have 2 quick questions. One is, I am always trying to think about outside the box. And so I'm curious, who on your team, if anyone, does any assessments of all the different departments around efficiency, return on investments, staffing? Who does that? Is there somebody in your office that does the assessing of outcomes and deliverables and the efficiency of the department? Is there such a thing? Or do you leave it up to the chief to do their own stuff? Like, who does that?
Jim, do you want to talk about OBM and sort of the process that you all do?
Sure. So Councilor, the role of evaluating departments' budgets, both their ongoing, what we refer to as maintenance budget, and also budget proposals, is the job of the Office of Budget Management. The management analyst is the point of contact with the department. the operation of the department may fall to the chief and the cabinet head and the program managers, but where we are sort of a central objective sort of analyzer, not that much dissimilar to what the central staff provides for city council. Why, have you underspent this line? What are you doing with staffing? Is there other alternatives to the way you procure these services to seek efficiency? We just had meetings with our IT department about differences with technology and technology equipment. As you probably are aware, the number of devices that have been grown since the pandemic with more devices, and we're trying to manage around that, seeking efficiencies around that. That is both the devices, but also the software that goes with it. So that is what we do as an office, and we work collaboratively with the analytics team and do it to get data, to leverage data that's in our data warehouses to measure those things, to measure the outcomes, to see if it's achieving the intended results.
Jim, can you tell me, since you're the face that I've seen the longest here, aside from Nick, you've been around too. I just want you to know I see your face too. Ashley, you're just coming on board here, so you got some catching up to do. But can y'all tell me, either one of y'all, or maybe even Ashley, when was the last time the city had an audit out that wasn't done by like an outside person that came in and just like evaluated us and our systems and our protocols, our policies, our procedures? Has that ever been done? And if so, where's the report of that outcome? And if it's never been done, do you think, given the situation that we find ourselves in, can we benefit from having an outside party look into how we're functioning as a department? I say us because even though I'm not part of the other side of the fifth floor, I say us because I feel very much part of this conversation, and we all have to hold ourselves accountable to a level of efficiency. So I just want to make sure that I include myself in that as well. So when was the last time something like that has happened? And where are those reports?
So I think there are typically often with the change of administration, mayoral administration, there are audits. I think with the change of the Walsh administration, there were some audits of certain operational activities. I think the school department.
Are they public?
Oh yeah. I think that they were public. And to be completely candid, I don't know if there are always universal acceptance of the recommendations. But yeah, those reports have been. I think one of the reports.
Could I Google it? Could I Google it and find it? Do I have to have the Da Vinci Code to get to it? Like, because can you either send it to me, or is this something that I can easily find, like any Joe, any regular normal person? Is it easily available to the public? And if so, I can Google it and get it, or y'all can email it to me. But I'd love to see it, and I think similarly to my spiel with BPS, even though they're not the ones who are in this hearing now, I'm always talking about the return on the investment. And I think that it is a healthy exercise for us to constantly reflect on reports that have been provided and or recommendations. So I'd like to have my, my team get access to that information through the chair, please, whether it be via email or a Google link or just some keywords that I can search for. I'd love to see that, because I think that there's something that we can learn from recommendations that have been made and just the expansion of all of this. And then the last question, and it's not so much more, it's less of a question and more of an ask as we continue to go through these trust building exercises, is that I really do worry about the scarce mentality, right? Like, I feel like I'm very hopeful and optimistic about the state of affairs. And, when I hear the administration talk about how we're doing on crime, like everybody wants to live here, y'all. Like, I just want you to know, this Boston, we are on the map right now. And that is a really good thing. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge the hard work of this administration, because it took a lot of hard decisions to get here, right? So I want, for the record and everyone else who's listening in, I really want to just uplift the amazing work that has been done over the last few years to get us to this place. And what I worry about, and I just would love some insight, is that when I look at this tax situation, I'm a homeowner, right? And, you know, my brother and I and our kids live on one side and my mom lives on the other. The only way that we're able to stay here in the city of Boston is because we all decided to pull our resources together and to stay here in the city. But when property taxes go up, everyone feels the crunch. Yes? Right? This is why we're having this conversation. When these tax hikes go up, whether it's the commercial sector or the residential sector, both sectors are going to be impacted, because once we have the commercial situation, those are workers that are going to get laid off who live in the city of Boston, right? They're not going to be able to afford to pay their rent. And then the people who are currently renting, when those taxes go up, they're not going to be, the landlord's going to increase their rent. So what have you seen from other cities? And what have been some of the best practices that you have seen other cities share or do to combat this issue? Are we doing the best that we can, or are we just coasting with what is safe? I know I said a lot.
Thanks, Counselor. So I'll try and get at what I think is the root of your question. So what other cities are doing, it's really hard to compare our exact system to other cities in the country, because we all are working under different tax constraints and tax systems. So what we're doing here in property taxes in Boston is probably not, you know, replicable or applicable to something that's happening in Chicago. You know, we just all are kind of working with different constraints and different mixes of revenue and whatnot. So it's a little bit hard to say, like, we feel good about what we're doing because we saw someone else, you know, a peer do it in Seattle or whatever. So that's just a challenge we have in sort of comparing ourselves in this particular way. But I think what you're describing is exactly why we want to do this proposal and why we brought this home rule to you, and why, you know, you all approved it, and why it's now up at the state. Is it's about creating stability. And in the absence of that, you're exactly what you described, this, you know, these dramatic changes that can hurt everyone. So, you know, our taxpayers, residential and commercial, are sort of accustomed to some, you know, normal level of tax increase. And of course, tax increases aren't, you know, fun. You know, people don't, you know, like them, want them, but it's, you know, they're sort of accustomed to this increase. And so in the absence of this tool, the way our current tax system works, you would see this enormous spike on the residential side and a decrease on the commercial. And so it's just really about achieving stability so that we can ensure that Boston is affordable as possible, in addition to all of the things that you know, the city is doing with you all, and to make this a place that is vibrant and livable and affordable and green, and all of the great things that we're all trying to do collectively to make a place that, as you say, Boston, people want to live in and be in.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just end, because I know my time is up, is that the time and energy that do appreciate the time and energy that you take to interpret my questions and break it down, because what happens is that people take for granted the privilege of information, right? And then there's some folks who are dying to have it, and then there are people who have more of it, right? And so my job on this council is to help translate for folks what is being said or not said, and ask questions that are on the hearts and minds of everyday people, not people who are policy wonks or, you know, analytics, right? Like, there are different types of folks in this space right now. And while my questions sometimes may seem bothersome or whatever the case is, really, to be honest with you, I am your constituent, right? I am the everyday person who is thinking about these things, and the people that I come in contact with are also asking me these questions. So while they may not be the best questions in the books, they're questions that everyday people who don't want, academics and smart like everyone, here in this little Zoom. So I appreciate your patience with those who are not as savvy as others. So thank you so much for your indulgence. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Council Mejia. Seeing no other hands raised, we'll move on to public testimony. Thank you to this panel, to the administration for all your work on this, on working on compromising and working on getting this tax classification passed. Wish you guys all the best of luck and looking forward to continue our collaboration.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Thanks. We now move forward with public testimony. When your name is called, please raise your virtual hand, state your name, neighborhood, and/or organization affiliation. Please speak. We have to speak into the microphone, but please keep your comments to 3 minutes. We'll start with BPPA MLEPG President of the EMS Division. There's no name.
Hey, Counselor, I don't know if you can hear me yet. It was rebooting me to a different screen. Am I on yet?
Yes, you're on.
Thanks for the opportunity. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Larry Calderoni. I'm the president of the Boston Police Patrolmen's Association. I know all of you, and you know me, so I'll quickly move on. Look, I'm not interested or here today waiting my turn to play the blame game. I'm not going to get involved in that. The members that I represent, which is right now approximately 68% of our membership are all residents here in the city. What we want to say is that we don't want our taxes going up. And I am here to very strongly urge all of us to do what we can to get the Senate to pass this. I know that I have spoken personally to Senator Collins, Senator Rush, trying to get our senators to do what they can to move this along. All of the other things that I've been listening to for a few hours are all necessary conversation, all very constructive. There may be better ways that we can raise revenue. There may be other ways that we can spend what monies we have. But for this particular 3 minutes in this topic, it's all about my members and the residents of the city of Boston. We already pay taxes. We already pay residential taxes. At the same time, the same people are paying for school, housing, clothing. I heard one thing about, specifically, Mr. Chairman, yourself, building more condos, adding more residents. It does generate revenue, but it also causes a whole litany of other problems. You put more kids in schools, you put more people with more cars on the street. I don't think that's what we're looking to do right now, so I kind of concur with those people in the finance office. Probably an idea for another time, but definitely not a fix here. I know we're moving quickly because we only have a short time, but my members don't want their taxes to go up, and the residents of Boston, I'm sure, don't want their residential taxes to go up. What I saw in that graph, I believe, from the CFO, was that residential taxes will continue to climb as commercial taxes will continue to decline if this is not passed. What we're looking for is fair and equitable treatment across the board. We'll pay our fair share of taxes. We expect the commercial industry to pay their fair share of taxes. We have way too many issues from pilot programs with nonprofit colleges that have super large endowments that don't pay anything. So there's lots of further conversations to have, but you can hear the frustration in my voice as I'm here to implore this council, to do the best they can to work with our senators to get this passed on Beacon Hill. Save all the other conversations and finger pointing from how we got here to where we're going for a later date. The most important thing are our residents that live in the city that do not want to be unfairly taxed or bear the burden that should be shared with the commercial industry. Plain and simple. I speak not only for the behalf of the Patrolmen's Association, but for our EMS division as well. President Matt Anderson asked me to speak for him as he could not make this for the extended period of time. But EMS people feel the same way. In fact, he gave me some notes to share. We don't want ambulance response times for life-threatening emergencies like heart attacks, unconscious people, or pedestrian struck to go back to the 8 to 12-minute response time. I know you don't want that. Surely we don't want that. Every precious minute saves a life. So the EMS and the EMT division feel the same way that I do. I know that my counterpart in the fire department is patiently waiting. I'm sure he's going to echo some sentiments and probably some things on his own. But once again, I appreciate the time, Mr. Chairman. I know it's been a long day. I have been here since 10:30, listening to each and every conversation that's been had. But I'm asking very strongly on the behalf of my members, again, in the mid-60 ranges that are all residents here in the city of Boston, we do not want to be unfairly taxed and unfairly burdened. We'll pay our fair share, just like every other resident in the city. But the commercial industry needs to bear that brunt as well. Everybody suffered through COVID. Everybody's trying to make up their means along the way. But there's absolutely no reason why commercial industry, which make more money than the residents of the city of Boston on a yearly basis, should get lower taxes as ours continue to go up. And I'll end it there. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Councilors, as always, thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you. Sam Dillon?
Chair Worrell, thank you very much. Members of the City Council, other officials on the call, thank you for the opportunity. President Calderoni, thank you very much for your testimony. I echo the sentiments of the BPPA president, our brothers and sisters in law enforcement, Boston EMS, as well as the other municipal workers of the city. We attended a town hall in West Roxbury last night to voice our opinion on this as Local 718. And I want to echo what I said last night. No one wants to be here. I don't think anyone involved on either side of this issue wants to be facing this. But the fact of the matter is, we are here, we are confronting this situation, and we need to do so with the best leadership and the best decision possible, as difficult as some of those decisions might be. I represent 1,600 Boston firefighters and officers. A vast majority of our membership are city residents due to our residency requirement, which we have with the city. You're not just talking about taxes for different parts of the city and different elements of the city. We're talking about taxing your residents, your city workers, your firefighters, your police officers, your EMS personnel, all of your municipal workers who have been through a lot on behalf of the city and proudly do so. We're in a situation where we are staring down the barrel of the what ifs and the potential if we don't get this done. We've all seen the recommended cuts. We've all seen what the tangible outcome would be. It's unacceptable. It's the fundamental purpose of government, serve and protect the citizens. That is the job of public safety, and we take that proudly. We cannot balance any budgets or any fiscal responsibility on the backs of the men and women who work in this city, the men and women who protect the city, and the men and women who proudly live in the city. I implore all leadership to do what must be done. I am proud to represent 718, and I am proud that our union is standing between tax increases and the residents that we serve and protect. Mr. Chair, thank you for your time. City councilors, thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. Lori Radwin?
Hey, good afternoon now. Lori Radwin from Rosendale. I am coordinator of the Rosendale Coalition. And first, I just want to thank the council, and especially I want to thank Councilor Mejia for calling out public trust. Public trust is very important, and when I hear that there's no place in the budget that the city can cut, I will say that every resident walking around every day sees waste in city government. Not fire department, not EMS, I'm a nurse, not, first responders. But in nursing, a couple, maybe 2 decades ago, we were asked to cut budgets because of the new payment system. And we used to have a nurse, head nurse, an assistant nurse manager, a nurse manager, a supervisor, and a chief nurse. Too many layers that we flattened the organization. I look at community engagement. Councilor Weber was right. Nobody wants to cut community engagement. But right now, between my ONS liaison and the chief of community engagement, I think there's at least 3 layers of management. We're going through squares and streets. I will tell you that I've met at least 4 transportation planners for Rosendale Square. There's a lot of redundancy in the system. There are days with squares and streets where the planning department personnel in the room outnumber by 1 to 2 the participants who are citizens. So I'm just suggesting that you don't have to cut positions to flatten an organization. You can do some reassignments. But right now, in order to be accountable, as Councilor Mejia said, incur trust in government, as Councilor Mejia has said, we really need to look at the ways that all of us are seeing every day in terms of flattening layers of management in the administration. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone who came to testify. I want to thank every panel, the administration and the first panel of community advocates. Thank my colleagues, central staff, IGR, my team to making all this happen. This hearing on dockets number 1445 and 152 is adjourned. Thank you.